The Middleton Zoning Board of Appeals open meeting for the month of May 2019. First item on the agenda tonight. Before I start that, let me advise you that the proceedings tonight are being recorded for both video and audio. First item on the agenda tonight, the board will review the minutes of the April 25th, 2019 meeting. All members should have a copy. Are there any questions? If not, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Motion's made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. All in favor, vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. I'm going to go out of order for the next item on the agenda because there's so many people that have an interest, and we'll move to 59 South Main Street, application number 1074.
Mr. Chairman, may I respectfully recluse myself from this particular item?
Certainly.
Yes, thank you.
All right, so this will mean, who do you want to hold? You're gonna need an alternate.
Katrina,
Okay, now,
I can't get this to work.
him
I don't know
leaving,
what I'm in.
point and
I don't do
To be your
touchpads.
alternate,
I
yeah.
need a mouse.
So you want to tell them?
I'm digitally impaired.
And
I'm sorry. I can't find any.
And now that Nick has been recused, will you take his place,
Do I have a choice?
sit in on this application?
Okay, thank you. Didn't know.
Oh,
I'm
wait,
trying to
there's
do it
Craig,
up
too.
here. I didn't know that was a touch
It's
screen.
both,
Here's
it's
the-
both.
and
So
would you rather
there's
have Craig? He's
the
here.
staff report,
It's fine, it's fine.
minutes, staff report, minutes.
Okay,
She says you want to press it.
thank you very much.
Did you say yes or no?
Yes, oh, that's fine.
What?
Yes, I will,
Or
yes.
want him to- Okay, you'll do
No, I'll do it, that's fine.
What do you think you're doing?
I have no idea.
Hi.
Hey, will we hit the balls today?
So I was on the other side of the wall. I'm coaching. 6 o'clock baseball.
I remember those days.
Yeah.
Okay.
You miss them when they're gone.
The Zoning Board of Appeals, a public hearing on Thursday, April 25th, to hear the following petition on the application of Fairway Estates LLC for a variance and site plan approval. Under Section 9.3.22 and Section 9.5 respectively of the Middleton zoning bylaw, or any additional relief the board may find necessary to allow the construction of age 55-plus condo complex comprised of 66 townhouse units on the property located at 59 South Main Street, found on Assessor's Map 63, Parcel 25. The abutters have been notified, and there's a bunch of letters and comments and all sorts of things.
Okay. You ready, counsel?
Good evening, Jill Mann here on behalf of Fairway Estates LLC, the applicant in connection with this use variance. We delivered late this plan that actually shows setbacks for a change in the setbacks. I just want to explain the reason why we're late, but regardless of that, the reason why we would like to be able to open tonight's meeting is because I know the abutters probably would like to have a voice and have the ability to make comment on the plan, and I didn't want to have to continue again. First. Second, because the only thing that we really changed was to create additional buffer around the perimeter of the property, because we did have an abutters meeting. So prior to your last public hearing, we did notify each and every abutter and delivered written notices to them and offered to have a meeting where they could come, review the plan, comment, give us their input, and then we would agree to make changes based on that. We did, in fact, do that. We met with many of the abutters, and we developed a plan that actually altered the site to create more buffer along the boundary. This particular property, just so you know, is R1A. Hi. So R1A is actually a 20,000 square foot zoning, 15-foot setbacks from the rear, 15-foot setbacks from the side. This particular property has about 23 acres of land. And is able to be developed in a conventional sense for about 16 duplex unit lots. That would be the by right use. as far as this particular zoning component, we were seeking to actually put in age restricted. It isn't 66 age restricted that will be sold, but rather there'll be 57 age restricted, and then we were providing 9 affordable units. Because this is a senior housing development, I don't remember if we spoke about it a little bit, but we may have. You cannot age restrict an affordable unit in Massachusetts and qualify for the affordable under, the requirement for the 10%. You just can't do it. They won't allow it. The only way to do that is to actually potentially have a 62-and-a-half-year-old requirement in order to age restrict and create an affordable component. However, I did talk to a company called Harbor Lights. Harbor Lights is a very active, not-for-profit organization that creates affordable properties, sells them, constructs them, manages them, leases them. They're a wonderful organization. And they would be interested in facilitating and assisting in the development of 9 units on this particular property. I also did talk to DHCD, and we also are able to create 2 separate lots. One lot would be the traditional, if you will, market value units, and then the other 9 would be all affordable units that we would develop and then be able to sell. We can still sell them or rent them. And people can have individual ownership in those homes. So we have investigated that and developed the plan around creating 2 lots. That's kind of why it took a little bit of time to get out a plan, because I was trying to get in touch with Rieko Hayashi, who is the woman from the Department of Housing and Urban Development that actually runs the LIP programs, the local initiative programs, which are the programs that actually approve affordable homes for qualification from a town. So basically, just to give you an overview of the property, because I think it's important, this is the property that's located directly adjacent to Angelica's. So when you drive by, you actually drive by Angelica's, and then there's a scrubby area of trees. That's the entrance. So this property has 78 feet of frontage? Yes. Yeah, 78 feet of frontage on Route 114. So the proposal is to create a subdivision roadway to come in. So we do need to go to planning and create a subdivision roadway that will create 2 lots. And that's what's shown on the plan. That road will comply with all of the local requirements, the turning radius, everything will be accessible and comply with the local zoning requirements. As far as the property itself, as I said, do you have the yield plan component, just so I can show them that in the traditional file?
Get over there. I have that. Do you want this at all?
I mean, I wanted to show them the yield, so I just wanted to show you a plan developed in a conventional sense. Oh, well, I mean, it's here, if you can get it.
All right, yeah, I'll work on getting it.
So basically, here is the conventional aspect of the property, and it creates 16 lots. Each of the lot is a double-sized lot, which means it's eligible for being developed as a duplex. As you know, in Middleton, the requirement for developing a single-family home as a 2-family home is that you have twice the acreage. And all of these homes, all of these particular lots have twice the acreage. So that's what this development is. Based on some comments, I think, in general from town boards, based on comments from, I think, the general public, the desire to have yet another residential development wasn't, I guess, the highest of priorities, which is why we sought to utilize it for senior housing. I mean, there would be other things that would be wonderful to be able to be used in this area. It would be great to be able to develop it for some sort of a commercial purpose, but it's a residential lot and it's surrounded on the rear side and the back by residential homes. So residential component is the best. The reason why we are opting to come before you and ask for a senior housing development, similar to, if you will, Peasley Circle, Riverview, North Meadows, one of those particular types of developments is because of the low impact on any type of social town services. It's also a much less impactful development, if you will. A senior housing development, is only 2 bedrooms, maybe 3 bedrooms per home. In addition to that, you really don't have children, but it is a matter of fact, in a senior housing development, because it's restricted, you can't have anybody under the age of 18 living in the particular units, so it does limit residency, and therefore impact and associated with traffic, associated with septic use, all of those things that are attendant to residential component. So basically, oh, Katrina just loaded it up. Okay, so there it is. Those are the 16 single-family lots. But again, they're double, so they're two-family lots. This is the proposal that would go forward for a traditional subdivision. This is what we would put forth should the use variance not get approved. I offer this to you to show what the density comparison is. So with regard to this, you know, if we were to develop it, we would probably then have somewhere.
Could you please speak into the microphone? We can't hear you.
It isn't, the microphone doesn't engage. It isn't,
Would you
there isn't.
yell then? We
Yeah.
can't hear you at all.
Yeah. That's odd, I'm loud. Okay. I think maybe I'm this way. So this particular property would have somewhere between, because of the number of units, it'll be 32 units. If it were developed in a traditional sense, it'd have anywhere from 110 to 132 bedrooms. That's what a traditional subdivision would yield. If we develop it for the senior housing component, it would have probably 100 bedrooms per. So it's less bedrooms if you go to the senior housing. It could be a few more, but it wouldn't be as many bedrooms basically as a traditional home. So essentially, the request is to grant a use variance. As with every single solitary senior development we've ever done in town, you need a use variance because you can't have congregate living in Middleton. Our zoning most certainly hasn't kept pace with any kind of cluster development, nor has it kept pace with anything relative to providing housing for the elderly, or even affordable. We have nothing in town that addresses those issues. This would. But the only way in which to do that is clearly through a use variance. So that's what we're seeking. Now, as far as the actual property and the development go, can you flip back to Chris's? Thanks so much. Okay. So with regard to the actual variance itself, the use variance component, as I said, would allow it to be developed for congregate living. It's commensurate with, the density, by the way, is commensurate with the density that has been approved on the other subdivisions, I apologize, with the other senior housing development in town. And basically, again, Peasley, Riverview, I can't remember the other one, Cobblestone, and then also North Main. So that's basically, I guess, an overview of what our proposal would be. We clearly don't have a site plan yet. We haven't really gone forward and developed more aspects of the property. We're waiting to actually get feedback from the board. And, you know, there's more abutters here than showed up for the abutters meeting, so we're assuming we're going to get more feedback from abutters too, that hopefully will be constructive. Chris, this is the only page you actually have up here, right? Okay. I just wanted to make sure. So I gave you a general description of the property itself, 23 acres, you know, the 70-plus feet of frontage, and the need to develop it as a subdivision plan in order to gain access to the two lots. As far as the property itself, you know, the general requirements under a variance, which you're supposed to prove, is that there's something atypical about the lot that doesn't generally affect lots within this particular zoning district across the board. We would say that the shape of the lot is actually quite odd. The location of the lot is extremely odd because it's the only large parcel of land that's located near the center of town and actually provides a wonderful connection and nexus between Middleton Square, Middleton Golf Course, and the Middleton Pond. So what it allows us to do is to provide some connectivity relative to walking paths. It allows us to provide people with an ability also to easily, from this particular property, go and walk into town. The oddity is, it's very unusual to find a property with a neck that's 70 feet wide and, you know, 300 feet long that goes back into the property. We weren't able to fit the entire subdivision and then the neck of the road on the plan. You can just see it as an attachment because you can't fit it all on the plan.
Counselor, I'm sorry, this plan you're putting up there is very difficult to read from just my location.
You can do, it's in your package.
I
It's behind
understand
you,
that,
too.
the package you just delivered to us.
No, this plan has been slightly modified, but if you look, you could look at the
The other plan you had up that was colored was a lot better, you could see actually what you were talking
Put it
about.
back. Oh, I
It's
understand.
extremely difficult as you're talking now to visualize where you are on this plan.
He can put them back.
Maybe the budget
But
was
easier,
tight and we
easier.
didn't do everything in color.
Well, we do it in color for these. I mean, do you do every sheet? Honestly, it's actually is very expensive to print them, so you
Doesn't
wouldn't.
have to be in color, I just would like to, be able to identify what you're talking about.
Sure, I mean, I think that's, so here you go. This plan is showing in color, and you can see all the comparisons. So again, the
Jill,
neck of the,
Jill, it's 23 acres, right? Is it?
23 and a half, yes.
And how many units are you talking there?
66.
66, 23.
I'll give you an example. Cobblestone, I think, has 7. I think there are 40, I mean, there's a lot of units on that. Like I said, the density is comparative to the other senior properties in Middleton. It's very comparable. So that basically is what we consider to be an odd situation relative to the lot. The literal enforcement of the use limitation, is a 20,000 square foot residential development. How does that actually create a hardship? It actually creates a hardship because do we want another single-family or duplex development in town? I mean, we can. It's easy to do it. But is it the most appropriate use, and does it actually impact the developer himself? Of course it does, but does it affect the town? Yes, even more so. So that's why we're seeking to do the senior housing. And then the other component, and I think probably, at least from a legal perspective, the most compelling component is, does the variance substantially derogate from what your purposes are in the bylaw? I mean, your purposes, as far as the bylaw goes, is to provide for an appropriate use of land, to ensure that you address the needs of the community, to ensure that you address health, safety, and all of the other components that are attendant to zoning, which is to make sure the use is developed appropriately, that you don't negatively impact a community. I believe that by allowing this to be a senior housing, you actually create a betterment for the community because you are creating housing for seniors. I hate to think that people who are 55 are seniors, but you actually do create housing for people who are retirement age. In addition to that, you will be providing affordable component, which otherwise won't be provided. And you are actually not creating any burden on the tax base at all. Because what this ends up doing is there's no public aspect to it. Even though we'll do a subdivision roadway, most likely we'll keep it as private, first. Second, the plowing that would be inside would all be private because it's congregate living. Third, there are no children. Not that we should really look at that. That's, to my mind, a necessary and a wonderful aspect of people coming into town, but still, there are no children who would contribute to a cost to the town. And all of those things basically create a benefit. And there is a huge amount of taxes that are raised by this type of a community, again, without any burden on it. So based on all of those factors, we believe that this particular project is suitable, or this particular property is suitable for a 55 and older community. And what we'd like to do, and we understand that this project you need more time to look at the final plan we laid before you because of the setbacks and all of the other issues. But I still wanted to, again, open it up, get some commentary back from the board, if I could, Mr. Chairman. And then also, I would expect that the board wanted to hear from the abutters as well.
Well, I'll start with a few questions that I have, Counsel.
Please.
The road that you're gonna put in there is gonna come right off of 114, and I realize now it's all overgrown in there, but that's part of the lot, and you're gonna propose to put a private road in there?
Yes,
Is that correct?
yes.
Okay. And when you build a development, these units are all gonna be duplexes?
If I build a traditional, it will all be duplexes.
Well, what you're planning?
Again, the use variance, it will be then a series of triplexes, quadruplexes, and then duplexes as well. So it's a combination of multifamily.
And the low income, you're gonna integrate into these buildings?
You cannot do that and have them qualify, so they have to be, there'll be a lot where we have the low-income home
So you'll have
housing.
low income would be separated from the rest of them. Is that what you're
Yes,
planning?
very similar to Orchard Circle, yeah. We would plan on doing a style development like that, which is, I don't know if everybody knows where Orchard Circle is, but it's right off of 114, yes. We would love to integrate, but we can't.
Pardon?
We would love to integrate, we cannot.
No, I
Not and have them
understand that.
qualify.
I'd like to hear you on the record, Counsel.
Yep,
The traffic study.
yep.
I think the board would be very interested in a traffic study before they went to any kind of a decision. Is that something that you're planning for us?
We actually would love to discuss the traffic aspect, because at this point, if you would like for us to get a traffic study, I'd like to be able to do one cooperatively with the town. Mr. Sparagus has done an initial review and has, he does, he's not, they are not traffic engineers, but they are engineers, and they do a full-blown report for us, and I have that and would like to share it. But then what we thought we could potentially do is have that actually get reviewed potentially by an engineering firm that we all can agree to.
I think for the number of buildings you're proposing there and the traffic that's going to increase there, along with the traffic that's on 114, I think the board would be interested in seeing a traffic study.
Yep, not a problem.
Are you thinking of a traffic light there?
Oh, goodness, no. So this is about, this particular property will outflow and inflow right at the point at which the 3 lanes are. So so you know Lewis Drive, right? There's 3 lanes, and there's a light on the opposite side of Lewis, and then you come down. This is literally right where the 3 lanes start. That's why. So, you cut in, you'll have to drive by. That's why this needs to have even a site walk before you probably can really think about it, because you need to remember what 114 looks like, and it's hard to. So this is actually a good spot from a traffic perspective, because the light is right there. So if you're going to take a right or a left, you can see the light, and you can actually turn, because that left turn lane is frequently open because people don't like to sit behind other people and wait. I drive that every day. That's how most people will actually access or leave this particular portion of the project. That's how they would do it if they turned left. And it's nice because the light stops them right in time. Or I guess in enough time.
Get a couple more.
Is this making the town, this would be the highest density in the town, wouldn't it?
Not even close, no,
Not even close?
not even close.
We're not a country town anymore.
You know what, we haven't been a country town since the 90s, but you know what, it's growth, and people have land, and that's why we're all here for the most part. But it is, it's still a rural community to the extent, you have single acre and 2 acre. I came from a place where we had 7,500 square foot lots, so for me, this is still the country.
I have a question about the wetlands that are involved there. I'm of the opinion that there are wetlands involved.
Yes.
Could you comment on that and tell us how they affect your plan?
Right, so there's a lot of wetland. They really, honestly, they don't really affect our land, because we're supposed to cluster. We cluster up the land so that all the units are actually located closer towards the cul-de-sac. So the wetlands are all located toward the back. So if you will, this particular property, it comes around and it forms like a block and then a block behind. And you really can't see it, but the golf course is right up here. So what the proposal is to even create a path. And the path would come around, and then loop up through the wetland. And we can actually do it. There's something called, it sounds terrible, but something called a swamp walk. And what you do, I know, it doesn't sound good, but I was talking to Kristen Kent about it, and even to Pike. And what you do is you create a walk with just boards that are kind of elevated above the wetland, because this is pretty much a BVW, so boarding vegetated, where we're going to do this. We're not going to go over a river. This isn't a river. This is just BVW, and then some wet spots that will hold standing water. So what we're proposing to do is put in this walk that will connect to the golf course, and then also allow you to outlet and then walk down off of Boston Street, and then go and connect to the reservoir. So it ends up being a good connection for walking trails. And we do intend, and the reason why I talk about that is because the question about the wetlands, we do intend to actually put that through the wetlands. And from talking with Kristen Kent, you can do that. We'd have to obviously get that.
All
type
of your proposed land here is clear of the wetlands, is that
Oh,
what you're telling me?
100%, Mr. Nazaro. We are farther than the policy they have for the 25 feet, we build outside it.
No, I've seen them come in with the wetlands, and the botanist comes in and identifies a plant as a wetland plant, and they put a stake in and say, well, you can't build X amount of distance from this plant, because you're gonna infringe on the wetlands.
And that's what they did here.
I'm sure you're ahead of that.
Yeah, we are. We already did what they call a delineation and had an order of resource area delineation, which is where they actually, Ms. Kent goes out, confirms the line, changes it to the extent she doesn't agree. You know, Mr. Spratt just sends his biologist out, and then we go before the Conservation Commission, and they approve the line based on their review and Kristen Kent's comments back.
Well, I think you were absolutely right when you said that the board is not ready to go forward with this plan tonight. We do need more time with it, but since we've opened the hearing, we'll continue along with it and get as much information as we can during this session. Finished?
Oh, I didn't know if you had more questions, yep.
Any other board members have questions of council?
There's only one entrance and one exit from that plan, right?
There
So
is.
all those houses will feed out of one little area there at 11 o'clock or 2 o'clock.
Yeah, so this is
Right
the one,
there.
this is the only, the street. We do have the ability potentially to try and get some sort of a exit for safety purposes, but honestly, nobody wants there to be another exit onto Boston Street because it will be a pass-through and people will be cutting through. So instead of waiting at the light, and that is something we've been told we should not do.
Your property doesn't border Boston Street at all, right?
No, but we have
You
had.
don't have any access to
No, we-
Boston Street?
We don't have any, we don't possess any ownership rights over any property at Boston Street. We have talked to other people about potentially trading off and being able to put in an emergency way. Never an in and out, never.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Any other board members have questions?
Mr. Hartwell looks like he's thinking.
We'll read the correspondence.
This one is dated Monday, April 8th, from the fire department. The usual preliminary items: turning radiuses for apparatus, fire department accessibility, hydrant sprinklers, fire alarms, etc. Thank you from the fire chief. It's from the electric light department. As far as electric light goes, we do have a plant there that could supply this development. The only drawback is that the power poles are across on the other side of South Main Street, so we would have to get across overhead to a pole staked on the owner's property somewhere, and then siphon down to underground to feed the development. There will be engineering needed, plus materials and labor from MELD, which will be paid for by the developer. And that's from Electric Light. This is from the police department. It would be the recommendation of the police department to have a traffic study done in this location, and I would like to know what other egress is available for this location. We have letters. You want those now, or do you want to?
Yep, let's read them now.
This is a letter dated May 4th. Dear Middleton Zoning Board of Appeals, I've lived at 40 Boston Street for 50 years and have always known this parcel was ripe for development. In many aspects, this project is the least objectionable of others that have been proposed through the years, though I do however, have serious concerns with parts of this project. The filing for the projected references of the Middleton Housing Authority as a partner of sorts is that the MHA would manage 9 units as a separate affordable housing component. It would be tucked into the corner of the development and managed separately. Questions: have you met with or plan to meet with the MHA, and what is their level of cooperation? The addition of affordable component is a welcome idea that would add to the town and state inventory. But how would the separate management of that area work with a luxury gated community? And I have to mention that it seems like a modern spin of discrimination, separate and still not equal. The density of the project seems to be a bit of business overreach. There are luxury units of approximately 2,500 square feet with a projected selling price of $750,000. And what is the hardship that would coerce the town to grant a special use permit Well, the town capped the number of units to a far more reasonable number. To maximize the number of units on this acreage, the developer has set up a peculiar ownership condition for some multi-units. Reducing the number of units in these buildings would mean the buildings would comply with existing density regulations. It would also mean that certain owners would no longer own a decidedly weird pathway along abutted property lines leading to their very own piece of wetland. And how would that wetland even appear on the deeds? Is it possible for the LLC to retain ownership of, manage, accept responsibility for the entire wetland area? The preservation of wetland and woodland is critical in this time of climate change and of valuable habitat extinction, but the carrot of providing a swamp walk and other pathways should never be equated to the stick of problems with water disruption. And what are the plans to mitigate water issues? Can the town require permeable paving products for all walkways and driveways? These products would help reduce the number of swales and retention ponds that litter the landscape of these developments. To have even a small increase in the percentage of stormwater recharged into the earth would surely benefit any septic leaching issues. Pondering the loss of privacy and long-nurtured serenity is not what some residents welcome. A reduced number of units would perhaps alleviate the concern of abutters in this regard. The monetary value of abutters' property lines lies in great in that privacy. And what exactly are the plans to preserve that privacy? And more importantly, the value of the abutters' property. Profit for the developer should never depend on the loss of values to others. Thank you for considering these serious concerns with the proposed development. I expect detailed information from the town developer, and that's from Claudia Johnson on Boston Street. And I think that was the only letter, Katrina?
Yes. We have a letter for 221 South Main, but that was the only letter for that
Two for
one.
that one, okay. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else here to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone here to speak in opposition to the application? You'd like to speak, ma'am? You have to come up.
Right.
For any of you folks that would like to speak here, you have to come up to the microphone and identify yourself so we can get you on the record. Okay? Please, identify yourself, ma'am.
Teresa Bono, 25 Dixie Drive. Can everybody hear me, or should I turn in the other direction?
Why don't you kind of turn that way a little?
Should I,
Yeah, go over
can
there.
Paul pick this up if I put this in the middle and then come over here, or something?
You can stand anywhere you want, you don't have
Okay,
to stand
I'll
at the
should be able to
microphone.
pick it up. All right. So a few comments that I want to make about this variance. And I guess the first one is I actually was looking at the application, and it's checked off as being commercial. Why is that when this is a residential?
That's a good question. I don't have an answer for you right now.
It
You know,
says commercial
building permits,
filings.
multifamily housing projects, when you apply for a building permit, is viewed as commercial.
Okay, okay, I guess that answers my, it does, I mean, we've talked about it being residential, so it's just bizarre that it's
What
commercial.
was the answer? I didn't quite hear it.
Any residential use over 2 family is a commercial by the building code.
So I know Attorney Mann had talked a lot about previous 55 and over communities that we have here in Middleton. Cobblestone, Riverview, Cranberry Commons, and Massey Meadow are a few that come up. I know she mentions Riverview a lot because Riverview is actually, that acreage is around 21 and a half acres, and there are 48 units on that. That actually, when I looked at that ZBA application actually started at 64 and was whittled down to 48. One of the things I want to bring to your attention is the fact that that was actually approved in July of 2006. In May of 2009, at town meeting, we actually accepted into our zoning regulations flexible development. So when Jill talked before about the fact of, you know, how you go about making dense housing and all that kind of stuff and getting affordable housing for 55 and older and all that kind of stuff, that's actually in the flexible development code that you have. And it's very clear, and I think probably coming out of what happened with Riverview, because I know there was one zoning board member that felt that Riverview was far too dense. There is a calculation that is in there that makes very clear when you're going to do dense housing, what you need to do is look at the right of use. And the right of use for this parcel as R1 is that it's a single family, 16 single-family homes. And what you do is you take that right of use, and 40% over that is what would constitute your dense housing. So it's not looking at what you can do for those 16 parcels, make them 32, because you can do duplexes on each of those, because that would require a special permit. That duplex is not a right of use. It's a single-family house that it's a right of use. So I'm not really understanding how you get 66 units, because if you go by the actual calculation that we have, you guys can calculate it, the most that you're gonna get is 22 or 23 homes to have that dense family development, unless they choose to do a special permit process to do duplexes, and then you're gonna get 32 homes. But I don't understand a calculation that is 66, and there's no provision in our bylaws that would come up with a calculation that's 66. The other thing that I don't understand is I know Attorney Mann has talked about the affordability. In the flexible development, there is actually a percentage there if you're going to do something like this and you're going to make affordable. And that percentage is 15%. So if you're looking at 66 homes, you're going to look at 10 homes that are going to be affordable, not 9 homes. I know it's the difference of 1 home, but it's a difference to, you know, an individual, you know, a couple or something or other like that. And I know when I was looking at the meeting last time, and I know Attorney Mann has mentioned again, the fact that you have to, I guess this is one thing I don't understand, and perhaps maybe you guys can go back and look at it, because I know you're not going to approve it this evening, but I know, Chairman, that you had mentioned, why don't we disperse these houses throughout, and Attorney Mann said that DHCD is not going to allow that, because in order to qualify for affordable housing, you have to have them all together. But then I've heard before that this is not going to qualify for affordable housing anyway. So I guess because the Housing Authority is not going to be the one managing it or something, I don't know. So I think maybe a little bit more about the affordable housing component in terms of how many homes they're going to be, exactly, you know, where they're going to be, why they can't be interspersed, might be something that the board would look at. My main concern is the fact that I don't understand where the number 66 is coming from. And as I said before, we provided in our zoning bylaws in 2009 to give a calculation that talks about density, and the 66 doesn't come in with that calculation. And that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I guess just talking first. So the first thing I would address is, can I just talk about Claudia? Middleton Housing Authority cannot own or manage any additional projects, so that's off the table. That's why I had spoken about Harbor Lights. I just wanted to make it clear that the Middleton Housing Authority would love to see us create more affordable housing for seniors. Would love for us to create more affordable housing, but they cannot participate. All they can do is say, you know, we'd love it, and here's the name of somebody in a not-for-profit agency that could assist you. So that's, I just wanted to make sure I talked about that a little bit. With regard to the comment about flexible development, the reason why you've never seen a flexible development project, because you can't develop under our flexible development bylaw. It's horrible. It doesn't work. And that's why you'll never see one under it. I'm just being honest. It doesn't work. It's if you look at other housing, flexible housing, they're usually called open space residential subdivisions, and they do provide for density, and it's done in a very measured way. We had adopted this a long time ago, and it just has never been able to be executed because it's just not.
Speak a little louder, please.
It's just not executable. It's a difficult bylaw to comply with, and that's why it's never been used. Number one. Number two, I don't believe it provides for senior housing. Number three, you cannot have a mixing of affordable homes in a senior housing development and limit them by age. DHCD specifically states that you can say to people you have to be 55, but you cannot restrict families. So what DHCD says is, listen, our goal in life is to be able to provide homes for families, not just homes, homes for families. So because a 55 and older development specifically says you cannot have people under the age of 15, and part of it is discriminatory, it's in order to not have school-age children. I mean, that is truly the purpose of it. They will not sanction it, will not count your units. That's it. That's the way it works. So that's why DHCD will not allow us to intersperse. The reason why I offered to actually create, I shouldn't say it's not my property, why Mr. Filiti offered to create a second lot was to be able to provide a housing alternative. We have housing alternatives on Memorial Drive. How many homes are up there? I think there are 10. And it's segregated, and it's lovely. It's maintained well, it's wonderful. It's not like, you drive by and you think, oh, that's affordable housing. It's not like that. It isn't meant to be exclusionary. That isn't the point at all. If we're meant to be exclusionary, we wouldn't offer it, or we wouldn't put it within the same confines as the project. The intent is to be able to have some shared aspects of living. That's why we did it. With regard to the number of units, it depends how you count them. Under your flexible development bylaw, it's not real, I don't recall distinctly, but 15% of 56 or 57 actually is the 9. That's how I got it. Because you look at what the number is, that's how I did it.
Jill, question.
Oh, yep.
Just a question.
Yeah.
What is each unit going for, 700, did somebody say?
That would be lovely, but I can't tell you that. I don't know yet. I don't know how big they all are
I mean,
gonna
I'm
be.
trying to figure the price within
Yeah.
the word affordable.
Oh,
I've
okay,
never
so.
heard like 3 units in 1 acre is affordable.
So the affordable units, we know, we will end up developing, 1 and 2. I don't think we do a 3-bedroom unit affordable. I doubt that, I don't think we will. I'm not 100% sure. Those are the only things I can tell you what the pricing is gonna be. It'll be like 135 and 155, I think, because it's senior. I'm not 100% sure of the number, but that's like the range. Because I know when we were selling them up at, not North Meadows, when we were selling them, because they're senior, I guess 176, right? 176 and 184. I think for those units. And those are something we had done too. So that's the flexible development. I mean, I love the idea of an open space residential subdivision. I just don't think our bylaw hits the mark at all. So I did the 56. I did Riverview. Is it 64 units? 58, 48 units? I honestly don't remember what it was, but I can assure you the Cobblestone is more dense than any development we have yet. Cobblestone. Look, senior housing is dense, that people actually create more units in the senior housing. It is, it's more dense than the norm. And as far as the project goes, we would do far more single-family homes than 16. Those were duplex lots, which meant it had to handle and be 40,000 square feet. If I were to do 20,000 square foot lots, I would get more than 16 lots. But the project, is going to be developed. If it is ending up developed as a conventional lot system, it will be developed as an entire subdivision of duplexes. That's what it will be developed as. But we can get more single-family homes. I didn't want you to think we could only get 16, because that's just not true. It is possible we would sell to somebody who would only put on a single-family home. I can't gauge that.
Jill, just the concept,
That was
a lot of people move to this town because of the nice, beautiful rural town. You could see the cows and you could see, are we going to become another Chelsea or another crowded community?
I don't think you're ever gonna get the Tobin Bridge here, so no, but,
Well, I mean,
yeah,
this
I know
is
what you
just
mean,
a
I'm being
big
silly.
concept,
Because as far as,
so-
I mean, look, development is what development is. People have, aside from Mr. Filiti, he can develop it in a by right format, but, people can develop their land. Can they develop it in a context like Chelsea? No. I mean, you're talking there, even smaller lots. we don't have that. But you know what, the trend is consolidation and higher density in a smaller
In
area.
this town, the trend was they'd open up a 1 acre lot and put maybe a $800,000 house on it, and not 3 houses in 1 acre, and it just
Right.
destroys the whole town concept.
I understand, it also, to some people, it's snob zoning, because when you build an 800,000 square foot house and you don't allow duplexes, it's snob zoning too. I'm not saying it is, but that's what a lot of people perceive it as, because you don't offer a mid-range product. Are these homes going to be low, affordable? No, we're gonna develop an affordable component, but will they be, low market? They won't. No, they're gonna be beautiful, beautiful homes. They're gonna generate a lot of tax revenue, and they're gonna be places where people can,
Counsel, the purpose was to rebut.
oh, he asked me a
what you
question.
said, and I'm
So
afraid
you-
we're
okay,
getting
if you don't
off
want me to answer his
off of
questions,
the
I won't.
subject here. I'd appreciate it if you just make your rebuttals, and then we can move on to the next person.
I was just answering his
I
question.
understand that, but
I won't answer them anymore. Go ahead.
Chelsea has nothing to do with what we're talking about.
I didn't bring up Chelsea.
Is there anyone else here to speak in opposition to this application? Please, come up, sir.
My name is John Caulfield. I live at 13 School Street, Middleton, Massachusetts. I came to town in 1950 at the age of 15. I'm just going to talk about cluster zoning. The first cluster zoning that came into Middleton was up in Boston Street, called the Meadows. I know that one house up there failed, and they had to move the
Sir,
system.
can you speak a little louder, please? People in
No,
the
that's
group here
not a
can't hear you.
microphone,
Yeah,
John.
just
I don't
speak
wanna-
to the
You
room.
turn a little
Yelling, but I
bit.
could
That's
yell.
all
I
right,
like
just
it
turn a
when
little
you're
bit, and that, they can
Okay.
hear too.
There was one house up on Knips Drive that failed. The septic went from the back of the house to the front of the house. That's the beginning. And the contractor, I remember the day, the McCarthy brothers, we moved the earth. And those houses were in that cluster zone, okay. Second, Brigadoon, known now as Meadow Drive and Fuller Road, rather. At the height, you come down 114, and the highest point is at the entrance of 114. As you go down Meadow Drive, it keeps on going down, 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 and to a bog area. The contractor had to get an easement to put a pipe from the golf course area through the subdivision. A big pipe, and it would take the water so they could put the foundations in for these homes in down at the lower part of the subdivision. It flows out from Meadow Drive to Fuller Road, and it disappears into the woods behind those houses. The water table was very high, and they had to get an easement. They ran the pipe through. All right. I'm just get out of hospital with a tick disease. That's why I'm kind of shaky here. Split level homes were built in that whole area. 16.9, 17.9, that was the price, the big sign at the entrance. As the further down that subdivision went, low, water table was high, septic was bad. They had to cap off the bathrooms in the cellars of those houses down there because of the storage in the water. Let me see. They went so long with these families, young families who were in, and I had them in sports. They grew up in the town of Middleton. And they finally went to town meeting with an article to get some relief from the situation. They couldn't, they won the article, but there's no relief down there because the South Desert Sewers District is the district that most of Ferncroft in that area is involved in. Let me see. So we're living on a septic. Now, I come to the second one, was Orchard Circle. 59 units, 53 people living there. The septic system failed. They had to go to the next door neighbor and take almost 5 acres of land off of him, highland, to correct the problem. They corrected the problem. And they took the land by eminent domain. Didn't get top dollar for it. All right. Then we come up to LaBelle's Drive on East Street, built in 2005. 2005. After less than 5 years into the subdivision, the septic system failed. The people they got a good lawyer, and between a lawyer and a contractor, each one of those 21 units had to get up another $5,000 to correct the problem. Supposedly they had the wrong sand in there. And you're wondering, from 1950 to 2005, have we learned anything about the cluster zoning in the town of Middleton? Then I come back here to Boston Street, Middleton. Two houses down from St. Agnes. There was a George Staler that owned the gas station that's now city service. He built a nice home there. And this person we knew was in town, Ron Davis, with his wife Peg. They had a problem in the cellar. They had to raise the cellar floor 5-6 inches to run horizontal Schedule 40 pipe to a well. There's an actual well inside the bottom of that house right now as we speak. And I used to help the old timer. We'd get 2 sump pumps that would be working one after another and take them down to PB Electric to get them repaired. And the water is up that high, and it's still there as we speak. And I'm just, let's see what else I can get out of here. Well, then last month I ran into the Board of Health agent. And I said, tell me something. How does Brigadoon get around Title V? He says, John, they're exempt. They're exempt from Title V down at Brigadoon. And what I'm asking you people, being you're the appeals board, and I'm appealing to you, is to walk the area from Brigadoon right through the cranberry bog. As a kid, when I was a kid, I used to cranberry down there, all the way out here to Boston Street, behind St. Agnes, and see what you think. That's what I'm.
So John, you're saying it's fairly wet?
It's still wet.
Hot water table?
We went down there about a month ago, walking the group Friday, and the bog is still there. It's still wet. He could not develop, Mr. Brown and Mr. Johnson, they could not develop all that land. He wanted to get a good par 5 in there, and he couldn't. Because 1/3 of it's bog, it's still there. You can go out there right now as we speak and just walk in it. And I even looked up definition of a bog in Webster's dictionary, you know. Let's see. That's about it. I mean, I just feel it's a disaster. Living on septic in Middleton is okay for a good size acres for a house and all that, but when you get into cluster zoning, and it's a disaster. And I swear that I'm on the well. Granted, I've been here since 1950. I built in 1964 on School Street. And if you have a piece of property that your foundation is at lower than the crown of the road, like Orchard Circle, the salt that's in this town that runs through, it contaminates all the area. A good friend of mine, he complained to me many times that he's fighting salt in his system, and his brother came up from North Carolina and said, "Gee, Tom, you got a high salt content." He had to test it. It was unbelievable, sky high. He's taking all these pills, but the town's a great town, but this cluster zoning is not the secret for a town that's not on septic system. That's not on the South has a sewer district, and I just feel it's a disaster.
I agree with you, but the mindset is changing in the town from an orderly growth for 200 years by the town fathers who did the right thing. Suddenly we're exploding to 3 houses in 1 acre. I mean, it's just not the town that it was just 10 years ago. I mean, it's surprising.
They get a lot to cover your septic and your well, if you gotta have a well, town water, but not as a cluster unit. It's just not gonna work, and it's probably more that happened, but these are facts, and I don't want to swear before this board that everything I said here is the truth. Is as much as I can get out.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else to speak in opposition to this application? Sir?
Good evening, Ron Trotter, 2660 Drive. So basically, it is 66 units, right?
That's what she's
So
proposing.
it's going to 56 and 59, we're hearing different numbers. Basically, you being asked basically to rezone this piece of property from R1 to R2. Is basically what's being asked right now, isn't it really? Because when 97 North Main Street was approved, they were told it's the last lot in town by the town planner that this type of development with the multi-units can be put in. When 97 North Main Street, same petitioner, same attorney. There's nowhere else in town where this type of cluster housing can go in. I know we're calling it over 55, I know what's gonna happen. Down the road, they say they can't sell 20 of them, they're in a hardship, they come in, they ask for a special permit to sell it for something else. I've seen it time and time again. It is my understanding that Attorney Mann is saying there's 23 house lots they could put up, single family, I heard 19 in the past. Are the duplexes by right or special permit on this property, what's R1? So it is special permit, so it's not by right. So by right, a maximum of approximately 19 to 23 single-family homes can be put in. That's what we have to stick with.
I don't think we've seen a layout for single-family lots. We've only seen the proposed duplex.
Yeah, the proposed duplex, just so everyone knows, was presented to the Master Plan Committee maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, where the 19 duplexes were proposed to the Master Plan Committee. That's why these town meetings need to be taped. I'm sure none of you people know that this has been going on for a couple of years. In my opinion, I think this is a ruse so they can get the duplexes in with a special permit and they showing how they compromised. Stick with whatever's on the books, and that's it. There's no hardship here for this developer. The only hardship is going to be for the town and the traffic and the abutters and the residents. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else to speak?
Point of order, Mr. Chair. I know I've spoken previously. Do I get?
Sorry, ma'am, I cannot hear you. You'd like to speak for a second time, ma'am?
Please, if it please the chair.
Okay.
Thank you. Again, Teresa Bono, 25 Dixie Drive. I just want to rebut the rebuttal and the comment Attorney Mann made about the fact that the flexible development laws that we have in our bylaws are not appropriate. As I said earlier, that law was approved in 2009. It's now 2019. And it's been about 10 years since we've had a comprehensive review of our zoning bylaws. And at the 2018 town meeting, the town overwhelmingly approved for us to do a zoning bylaw review. So when you do these use variances, basically what you're doing is you're changing the zoning. So it seems to me that really what we should be doing here is either it gets developed the way, the as of right way, but if we go and we change the zoning, knowing that the town wants us to take a look at the zoning, that is going to be really premature and really against what the town wants us to do at this point, because it was very clear at the 2018 town meeting that they wanted us to take a look at zoning here in town. Thank you very much.
Is there anyone else to speak? If not, we'll move on. As I told you in the beginning, council, we're not prepared to go forward unless you want me to go to a vote, but I think that a continuance would be in order here so that you can gather some of the other information that we're interested in.
Would
You propose a 30 days?
Oh, absolutely. Would you like to do a site walk so you can see it? Just, I think it's so
I think
hard
that
to.
that's- That's in the agenda, yes. Are you prepared now for a site walk? Is that all staked out?
We can absolutely stake it out for you. We can stake the limits of the road, we can stake, you can see it. I just think it'd be very helpful for you to see how you come in, where it is with regard to 114, because it's hard to even have a conversation about it until you can physically see it.
A site walk would be fine. Can we get a date?
Yes, whenever it pleases the board.
You got the holiday weekend coming.
Have to be after that, have to be in June.
That's just because they were.
When's the June meeting, Katrina?
June meeting's the 27th. So we should be in, I'm gonna be away 13, 14, 6, 7, 8, 9.
We want to do a Saturday morning?
Saturday morning, the 15th would be a good time for me.
That works for me.
Is that all right with you, Jim? The
Sure,
15th?
whatever you say.
Does that work for you, Joe?
Okay,
Okay.
Absolutely, whenever it's good for the board. So the 15th, what time would be good for everybody?
what month?
It's
June 15th.
That's June 15th, it's a Saturday. And what is a good time? 9 o'clock?
Does that not work for you?
9 a.m. good?
Sure. 9 a.m.
Be a little
Cranky,
Would you rather
yeah.
do it Sunday morning?
No,
All right.
that's fine.
9 a.m. Saturday, perfect. The 15th, thank you very much. So then, Mr. Nazaro, are we
We'll-
going to continue it to
We're
the?
going to continue, yes.
Okay.
Before we continue, can I
Oh,
ask a
yes.
question or two?
Certainly. Yep.
I just would love for the applicant to have as much time as possible to answer any questions. What's the use you're seeking a variance for?
Congregate living, you can't do multis here, so that's what it is.
Where on the table of use regulations are you?
Under R1A, you can only do single or duplexes. So you actually have to.
It would be dimensional too, though, for the lots.
Well,
Well, that's
I'm
not what she's
doing a
asking
lot.
for. She's
So
asking
it's-
for a
it's-
use variance.
It's multifamily homes on one lot, so you don't allow congregate housing, so it's not, like, Ms. Trottier said it, right? We have R2 district, that's the district where you can put multifamilies, that's one of the uses. That's what this would be, is a multifamily development without boundaries with regard to lots. So it'd be one big lot, well, it'd be two lots, so it'd be two lots with multis on each. That's what the variance is from. It's the limitation on basically developing more than one or two units on a single lot. It's the same variance that we've gotten for the other senior housing. It's because we don't provide for, like, a lot of towns have those overlays for senior housing that allow you to do the condominiums. We don't. That's why the only way we've ever been able to develop senior housing is with the use variance.
Right, but I mean, the town voted at a town meeting
Yep.
on the flexible development schedule, which I know you don't like, but we serve at the mercy of the town, and the town voted that that's the way that they wanted additional units to go through their bylaws.
Right, I think 3 senior housing developments were approved via use variance after that. Right.
Okay,
It's-
but we're here for this one.
Again, my point is, the reason why it's never been used is it can't be. If we were required, we can't do it under it. You can't do this development under it, you can't do almost any development under it. The terms of that particular bylaw provision.
Are very strict. I mean,
They're impossible to comply with, which is.
impossible?
To develop.
Like, you're telling me zero development possible with the flexible development schedule that was in
No,
place?
absolutely. I have come in and tried to do it so many times, you cannot develop. If I show
Wait a
you
minute,
what
whoa,
it
whoa,
is
whoa,
on
whoa.
this.
What you
How many,
want to
wait,
develop.
in the last 10 years since that law was on the books, you've come in and you've
Oh,
applied for
not
it?
to you. With developers tried to develop the properties, you can't.
But wait a minute.
Again,
Hold on.
put it this way, you can't, everything is.
I mean, I understand not wanting to, but to say you
No,
can't do it when it hasn't been
You
tried.
financially can't
Oh,
afford.
financially can't, okay,
But that-
that's a big difference, though.
Oh, it's just the same as anything else. It's like you financially can't afford to buy a home, so you can't
Okay.
buy a home, you have to buy an apartment.
Right.
So it is the same, it's the exact same argument. If it's not able to be financial, if a development's not financially feasible,
Right.
it's not feasible. And trust me, I understand. Is it just about making more money, Jill? Is that really what it's about? You probably can make as much, maybe a little more by doing the duplex development. It's just not in the best interest of the town to
So
do
you're
it.
saying that financially, because.
The flexible development is
They're actually,
possible.
hold on. let's just back up for 1 second. So the hardship you're claiming is financial, but you're saying you'll make the same amount of money with both plans.
You can, with both plans, you probably could.
So
where's the hardship?
Hardship is attendant to the town because you're gonna be burdening the resources. Do you really want a single or another two-family development? I personally don't. I travel this route all the time. I would prefer it to be senior housing. I think it's a great use. Would it bother me if it was all two-family homes? No, it really wouldn't. But I think it's a more appropriate use. It's the only large remaining parcel in the middle of town, the only one. The golf course is gone, everything else is farmland.
I guess, maybe I'm slow tonight.
No, go ahead.
So, tell me again, what's the hardship?
The hardship is,
Not to the town, because that's not, if you go to section
Has to be
10
for you.
of chapter 40, it doesn't say anything about, the town makes more money on this, or it costs the town less money. It says there's a hardship to the property.
it doesn't have to necessarily always be financial.
Well, clearly it's not, because you said there isn't a financial hardship.
I
So
think we
what's the
could-
hardship on the property?
Again, it's just the development of it is an appropriate use. Just like every other one we've approved. Is it an appropriate use? You
No,
can go
but
there.
but it doesn't say anywhere, I got it right here. It's Mass General Laws,
I understand.
chapter 40, section 10.
Oh, I know them better than most. Is there any
And I
hardship
don't doubt it,
attendant?
but where's the hardship?
The hardship is the property is not set up to be single-family and duplex-family homes. It is best served as being a senior housing.
Wait, how?
Yes.
What? I'm sorry.
In your opinion.
It's getting late, so tell me again how the property is set up financially. You can either do the duplexes, you can do single family, or you could do this 66 unit development.
Mm-hmm.
You're still gonna make the same amount of money, so there's no financial hardship to the petitioner,
We're not.
right? Where is the hardship to the petitioner
Okay.
that compels us to,
I get-
for this high
Variance.
level, this high threshold of relief that a
Absolutely.
variance
So you come
requires?
in, every single solitary tree will be cut down on the property. You'll have independent septic systems for every single solitary one of the lots. There'll be a higher density. The hardship is the actual development impact on the property will be greater for the two-family and the single-family homes. It will be. And you have septic systems on all the individual lots. Here you have one septic system that will come in. You have that type of hardship.
So
It
more-
doesn't have to be
more-
financial.
No, so more plumbing.
It's not just, that's not fair, that's not even the case. If it were more plumbing would be trying to get to individual septic systems. Actually having individual septic systems is a burden. You have to have every single solitary lot will have one.
Right, and the town has bylaws in place to allow for the square footage for each lot, to allow for septic and all the other.
And they
and all the
comply,
other.
Title V compliant, that's not the
Right,
point. So it's an additional hardship to have to put in individual septic systems for all the lots, and then there'll be, the actual property itself will be overburdened, because you see the nice buffer, it'll only be a 15-foot buffer after that. And
But there won't be 66 units there. There are
it'll be
only-
15, let me tell you, it will feel, you have to remember, you have to think outside the box of what you're asking. So you say to me, what is the hardship? So the property itself.
Well, I'm actually not asking the hardship. The Mass General Laws is asking what the
Well,
hardship is.
you are, but here you are.
Yeah.
Mass General Law requires that there be a finding of a hardship. My point is, the hardship would be something other, I apologize for my phone, I had it looking at that's rude. The hardship would be to the owner to have to literally cut down all the trees on its lot. It will have to do all the septics on each of the individual lots. Some of the lots will have to be hump septic systems, we all know what that is, right? Raised septic systems. It creates a burden on the property itself to have all of the individual homes and lots. It does. It is different in this venue,
How, okay, that's fair.
because it's not financial.
How,
Can I pop in one minute?
nope. Sorry.
That's okay.
So, I'm a single homeowner,
Yep.
right? I got one house, that's it. How is the burden on your developer any different than if I have one lot and want to build my house on it?
I don't understand, I apologize, I don't understand what you just asked, because it's not one house.
Right, it's a lot of one houses,
Yep.
or it's a lot of duplexes. So how is that burden on him? Because he's got all this money that he can spend to build all of these. I don't have that money. But if I were to build one unit, one house, a single family or a duplex, how is the burden on your developer different than mine, other than the volume which he is going to get the benefit of?
It is not financial. It is the impact to the development to have homes with a whole bunch of individual septic systems. It's the burden of it. It's the fact that the land will be different. You will alter the actual complexion of the land. You'll have to have raised septic systems. You'll have to tear down all the trees. It will have more impervious areas. You'll have to create more storm water. It isn't, and I do get your question, because you're thinking, where's the financial hardship, Joe?
No, there's no financial hardship.
None.
Where's the hardship?
It's literally that you're gonna have to put more storm water. You're gonna have to have more area for septic. You have to have more area for reserve. Now, can it happen? Absolutely, it can happen. It can happen, but
And it won't
it's a
cost you more
hardship.
money, because you've already said that it won't
It's a
cost more money.
hardship. And that, again, it isn't always, I mean, look at, developers, you build to make money. It's just like you all go to work to make money. You don't offer your boss back your money. You go to work to make money. And that's what he is trying to do, absolutely. And what's the hardship? The hardship is, if he develops a lot, and he can, for single and duplex homes, he's going to have to put in 16 to 32 septics, because you can share in a duplex. Some of those systems are gonna be raised systems, some of them won't. Some of them will be big systems, some of them won't. You'll have to have more storm water areas, because you have to attenuate for all that area. You're going to have a tremendous number of driveways that aren't the same when you do these, because they'll be further back. Because when you're trying to put in all the area, you have longer driveways, you have bigger driveways. That's just the way it happens. And people want backyards, they clear cut. That's the hardship. So it's actually, it's strange, because it's like, it's an ongoing burden, right? So those hardships that attend to the actual developer are even magnified to the town and to the individual homeowner, maybe in some instances, although people will like that type of neighborhood too. People like sometimes dense developments.
Is there, you've got a lot of different plans and sheets
Yeah,
out here.
I know.
Which is great. I mean, the more information, the
I know.
better. Where's the plan that shows the hardship? That shows all of these systems that you're gonna, that would be such a burden on the property, that make this property unique, unlike any other lot in the zoning district, that would compel us to say, yes, this lot is deserving of this high level of, scrutiny, and to allow for this kind of relief.
We didn't put the septic systems on. If you want to put it back up, I can show you where it all would be.
No, I mean, you're gonna show me all 23 or however many septic systems?
We have no intention of developing as single families. We really are gonna do it all as duplexes. Can I show you the locations of all of them? Yeah, I can. On the next, if you prefer.
No, that's why I
because
asked
it's gonna
that.
be conceptual. I can show you in the next meeting.
And that's why I wanted to ask the
Yeah.
question, to give you time to look at that, because,
you know what, that's
because the
awesome,
plans that
because I
you
will.
presented don't show a hardship.
It doesn't. And you know what, I will respect that question, and when I come in, I'll take that concept
I
plan.
respect your answer.
I'll take that concept plan, and I will show you what I'm talking about. I'll show you where we have to do storm. I'll show you where I have to put septic. I'll show you where I think, I can only show you where I think the homes and the drives will be located, because I think that'll help.
I think your engineer's gonna throw up with you making all these representations, so that's okay.
And I want it by Monday. That's good.
I just have one other question. This one's real simple, and, not to
Greg,
put,
nothing's simple.
not to put your engineer on the spot, but,
Well, it's up to you, Chris. Now.
no. So you want us to rely on the traffic study that the non-traffic engineers did?
No, so that's why I said to Dick, I said, we do one in-house, and then I think,
With non-traffic engineers, though?
there really isn't a, you can explain that. He's gonna.
Yeah, I'm just trying, they're
We are willing to-
they're professionals. It's kind of like going to a doctor, right? I mean, if I blow up my knee, I'm not going to my kid's pediatrician. Like, even though they're both doctors, every engineer is kind of the same way. I mean, you've got all kinds of engineers out there. Just because you're one engineer doesn't mean you're qualified to do it on something else.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chris Sparagus from the Engineering Office of Williams and Sparagus. To answer your question, Mr. Hartwell, so we do traffic memoranda from time to time when it's a very simple analysis, like we believe we have in this case. We don't go ahead and do intersection analyses and full-blown traffic impact analysis, but trip generation, which is the number of trips that are going to be generated from a project, we can certainly handle that and show you the comparison between a single family or a duplex development and an age-restricted development to show you that there's a significant difference in the number of trips per day. And then when taken into context with the number of trips per day along this corridor, any type of residential development is going to have a very small impact on the existing traffic flows on the highway. But if you want a full-blown traffic impact analysis with intersection analyses and turning movements and things like that, it's usually the number of trips per day govern. So let me take another step back. If you were to speak with a traffic engineer, there are certain thresholds that trigger different levels of traffic analyses. So traffic memos and a basic traffic analysis, if you don't have a certain number of trips per day generated from a site, it doesn't rise to the level of a traffic impact analysis. And that's what Joe was trying to tell you, that we can certainly show you that the number of trips that are being generated or would potentially be generated from a project like this wouldn't rise to a level requiring a traffic impact analysis.
What would be the floor that would trigger a broader traffic study?
So,
In terms of
So for
traffic
example,
generated by the
To
site.
put into context, we have, for example, the Ridgewood Estates project, which is a 54 lot subdivision. It was a very, very low number that didn't rise to the level of requiring a traffic impact analysis, for example, just because you're just not generating the number of trips per day. And in an age-restricted development, the timing of those trips are such that they do not occur during the peak AM time period, which is typically 7 to 9 a.m. in the morning, or in the afternoon between 5 and 7. They're at more odd hours. And that's what our analysis was going to show. It's very simple, actually. It's a very simple memo to show you the impact from a development like this is very, very small and doesn't rise to that level. And in the memo, I would summarize what the level of the number of trips per day would normally trigger a traffic impact analysis. It's typically a large commercial project that would trigger it.
You know what that number would be?
Off the top of my head.
So 66 units would have 66 cars,
At least.
or mostly have two, so that's 132 cars.
Right. that's
And if
not-
you had 16 duplexes, that's 32 housing units, say 3 people live there, that's 96 people. They maybe have 2 cars each. That's only 64 cars.
Right, it's not about the number of cars as it is the number of trips based on the research that the International Institute of Transportation Engineers puts out in their ITE handbook. They've done research over decades and have collected research on trip generations from thousands of sites and have tables and calculation sheets in this handbook that help you determine what the trip generation is based on use. So it's not the number of vehicles per se, but it's the number of trips that are generated based on the use. And to take it a step further, what we're looking at is the impact during the most difficult times of the day, and that would be the AM peak and the PM peak. And so you can actually generate with the same handbook what the peak hour traffic is at those times as well. Bottom line, on a project like this, it's actually shocking how small the impact is, and that's what we were going to show in a traffic memo.
Jim, could I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Wait a minute. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say that if it was building $200,000 units there, it would be a service to the town and the children that can afford to stay in the town they were born in. But if you're talking high-priced units, you're only benefiting the guy that's selling the land. You're not benefiting the town at all. You're causing more problems. You're making the town look different to other people from the outside. I mean, this is a nice country town. I don't want this unit and 10 others like this because they'll say, gee, you let these people put in 60 houses in 20 acres. Let me put in 60 houses, 20 acres. You set a precedent. You change the whole character of the town. I mean, if it was a good bargain for young people coming in here and really affordable housing, but it's not affordable housing if you're talking $500,000 or $600,000 for a unit. You're only benefiting one guy.
Jim, we're gonna continue this and talk
Okay.
about it further, so
That's
we're
all
just
I'm done
delaying
anyway.
it and gonna go back over it again next month.
Katrina.
Okay.
I'm done
I
anyway.
just have 2 questions regarding the traffic. First of all, it isn't the amount of traffic, it's where that traffic is entering that intersection that concerns me the most. And I was hoping that some kind of traffic report would maybe address that issue or show ways to just make that exit entrance easier there. And the second thing is that you all received the proposal from the traffic consultant that was going to do a peer review of any potential traffic. Can you authorize me to accept money if you finish a traffic report mid-month? We could possibly get the peer report going and have a report by the next meeting. And I think 6,500, they had proposed 6,500. I don't think we need to really go over that.
It's ridiculous.
For the traffic money?
Yeah. I told you.
You should be charging more,
Yeah.
Chris.
I mean, I would ask that we do another review too. I mean, the company is out of Boston, right?
No, they have a,
Oh, all right.
Go ahead, please, Commissioner.
The applicant should be providing us with a traffic study that was being requested. A lot of the issues being raised are traffic-related issues. We shouldn't be doing as a town, shouldn't be doing the traffic study for them. We should be reviewing a report provided by a traffic engineer, and then doing a peer review, not basically redoing, and that's what's happening where Chris has his discipline. Our traffic engineer would then be redoing the report as a traffic engineer. Many municipalities require you to submit a traffic study done by a traffic engineer, and then the town hires a consultant to review that report, not do the report for them. I mean, that's, sitting here tonight, 90% of what I heard is about traffic. The police chief's concerned about traffic. I think it just needs to be done by a traffic engineer.
I'd like to add one thing that, don't forget that when we're talking about the traffic, is that in a few years, we'll be having fire trucks come through there on a regular basis, in the opposite direction. Probably more, because assuming that we build the fire station at the golf course, they're gonna be coming, to get to that other side of town, they have to come through that intersection.
Traffic studies are
That's-
actually pretty reasonable
Yeah.
to have done, especially when we're talking 66 units. It's not a very expensive relative to the project, and I think it'll answer a lot of questions.
Yep.
Take care of it. We'll take care of it.
So do we have to authorize a traffic study, or what do we have to do?
Just a minute, sir. I saw you trying to get my attention. I'm going to recognize you in just a minute, please.
if you're okay with it, I just wanted to make sure you were okay, because you've already adopted the 53G consultants bylaw. And so if you're just okay with me accepting the money, we'll put it into the 53G account, and when our consultant does the peer review, it will pay them out of that.
Do we have to vote on that?
I don't think so.
Okay.
We'll have a vote, and that way you'll be covered on it. Okay. All right, sir, please.
Scott Teague, 165 Forest Street. I just have three questions, actually, more than anything. One, two of them are for you. First one, is the developer willing to expand on Craig's question, willing to actually put together a concrete proposal to demonstrate the hardship that this would impact, something more tangible than the explanation that's been given?
You have to keep asking, I think, and then you ask all your questions.
Okay, great.
Your
Two,
questions in your presentation. You're talking to the board, sir.
sorry,
not-
sorry, I thought you wanted to talk to the
I'll
room.
allow her to rebut if it looks like it would be in the best interest of the board.
So how I should probably word it, is the board willing to request a more concrete study proposal for what the actual hardship would be? Two, and I don't know if I should ask you this question or Mr. Fitzpatrick, they mentioned with the duplex units that, this is a two-part question, that I guess my question is, what is the use permit? You mentioned that it requires a special permit if they wanted to do duplexes. Planning board. And would that include if I understand the plan correctly, that the acreage is actually split between the units and then a plot of land to the north, and they're shared?
No.
No.
It would be shared in the duplex plan. Every lot would contain at least 40,000 square feet.
But in this plan, it's shared?
I don't have the updated townhouse plan.
It's kind of confusing because, just, if I don't mind jumping, I think,
On the duplex plan, it takes small strips of land, which is allowed by zoning, to get out to the wetlands, to incorporate square
Yes.
footage from the wetlands into it.
yeah.
And
so
they would
each of
require
those-
that to meet the zoning?
Yeah, so it doesn't, you don't have to have double the frontage, you just have to have
Yeah.
double the square footage.
Footage.
So
Yeah.
that's why on the plot that had, or the plan that had the 16 units, they were all pretty deep.
Yeah.
So the depth is what gives them the additional square footage, if I'm not mistaken. That's what allows for it to be a duplex as opposed to a single family,
And lastly,
which they would need a special permit for from the planning board.
would the board consider a request to the developer to investigate alternative entrances and egresses to decrease the impact on 114 and maybe shift it to Boston Street, split the lot into two sections so it isn't a cut-through, to split up that impact?
Well, I asked council if she had access to Boston Street, and she said no, but they may do something in the future. Is that correct, council?
Thank you very much.
So, okay, so the first question was, we obviously, we do plan on preparing a, if you will, a more in-depth proposal relative to our hardship, and we'll show that on a plan, absolutely. With regard to this particular proposal, if we do, if this board sees fit to grant the use variance, there will be a large open space parcel to the rear. And then there will be other benefits for community, there'll be other benefits as well. So then the third question was, what do you ask? Oh, the openings. This lot will never be split in two with two access points from two individual points. You'd have to try and really break it up so that people couldn't get in and get out, and we don't have that type of access. If we were able to gain access, it would simply be an easement to allow for emergency vehicles. It would never be, I don't have rights to it, a roadway access. I don't have rights to that type of of entrance or property.
Thank you.
Can I ask one?
Young lady?
My name is Natasha Vansfield. I'm 3 White
You
Lane.
gotta
You
speak
really
louder.
speak
We
up.
Sorry.
can't hear you.
Natasha Vansfield, 3 White Lane.
Yep, that'll be fine.
One question, I understand, we've already talked about the traffic, so I understand, I won't even go there with the traffic. I do have a question about the water. I'm already seeing the drought, I think we're at level 3. The signs, and my understanding is that we're allowed to consume 3.1 million gallons per day, and we're already at maybe roughly 3 million. So what is the impact of having 66 units instantaneously come on, like for someone like myself who doesn't have a well? My understanding is that we are then taxed when we go over the 3.1. We pay a penalty, so how will the town, whose responsibility sort of is that? How will the town prepare to receive these people and all their water
But when
needs?
they issue permits, the town is agreeing that they have the assets to support what they're asking for. And, people own land, they have a right to develop it as, in accordance with the law.
Board granting a use variance doesn't automatically entitle him to tie into the water system.
Oh,
That's something he would have to permit from the DPW and the water department.
okay, thank you.
So that one, I have a question around that. Mr. Sprague, what is the wetland, the water table situation where you want to build? Have you perked out? What have you done there?
Sure. Back in December of 2015, we dug a series of deep test holes and conducted perk testing that was witnessed by the Board of Health. And the soils are actually very sandy and gravelly on this site. We established estimated seasonal high groundwater table, so we know where that is relative to the ground surface. And this is a great piece of land in the upland portion that's available for development.
Are you going on wells or tying into the water?
Our plan is to tie into the existing water main that exists along 114.
Is that going to affect?
We have to affirm it from the DPW water department.
Aren't we pretty up there already?
We're close, but whenever they get an application in, they review what the application is and what the limits are and make a decision.
Is Pike here?
I saw Pike.
Pike, what do you think about the wetland issue around this? Do you want to talk to this a bit?
I know it well, it's my backyard.
That's right. It's Pike Messenger. Want to identify yourself?
Pike Messenger, 32 Boston Street, and a butter to the lot in question here. The water that goes off my roof in St. Agnes goes into Punchett Brook and end up in the river. And as Red said several times, that whole area is wet, the back of the golf course and the back of this lot. The front of the lot, the 13 acres they're planning to build on is higher. And the reason I'm here tonight is obviously to hear the hearing, but we had an abutters meeting too, is that I want to see low-impact development somewhere in town that makes sense, like some other towns, where we conserve water and really take care of it. And this is one reason I have against the big lots with big lawns, where Chem Lawn and Safe Lawn and Obscene Lawn is coming in and pouring chemicals on the land. And wouldn't it be nice to have a development in town, near the center of town, that has low-impact development? And I won't go into all of that. You got everything from rain gardens to no lawns. You have bushes that the birds love, and you have curbs that aren't like this, that small animals can't get over. You get curbs with a slope. There are all kinds of things you can do. You can have porous pavement. Chris is well aware of all of these things. But we haven't done it in our town. That's what I was hoping we'd see up at the Jewish Community Center. What we used to call cluster zoning, where you had the houses up on the hill, you could have them quite dense, but then stay away from the river and the wetlands. As this land drops down from the land with the good soil is for the septic systems that Chris mentioned, then immediately you go into wet, and it's wet all the way down Punchett's Brook all the way to the river. Anyway, at these hearings, I'd like the opportunity to hear about low-impact development. And what a nice place you could have down here for wildlife and stuff. You could have some kind of trail going over to the golf course, which we now own the back of it, and that's just as wet as can be if you walk down the back of the golf course. And we're hoping that would be proper meadow with the birds and everything would like. I'm talking now about the golf course, but this abuts it from the wetland. You go right from this lot into our new land at the wetland. Low-impact development.
Yeah, that's why I asked him to get up too, because I'm getting a little tired of the Fuller Pond look. You know, we really need to see some creativity when it comes to water and water quality. And there's a lot of ways to do that, rather than the standard kind of development we have all over freaking town. So you really have to show some creativity when it comes to water conservation and low-impact development. And I think you can do that with this, but so far I'm not seeing it, but it would be really, really advantageous to see some really creative uses. And you can talk to Pike some more about it, but there's a lot of ways to do this other than the typical Fuller Pond looking place. Not that Fuller Pond isn't beautiful, but we really need to think toward the future with this property, because it is so sensitive, surrounded by the wetlands, that we gotta just step up for the future, not just for the immediate gratification of the developer and the people buying this property. We have to really look ahead. And I would feel much more favored toward this if it showed just an ounce of creativity when it comes to this, because every development so far has not. And, you know, a little puddle in a stone pond is not a rain garden. Sorry. The rain gardens we've had in town so far have been pitiful. So there has to be a lot more creativity than that.
Okay,
Yep, we need to settle the traffic study money.
Gonna do that
for
first.
Katrina.
going to go forward and ask for a vote on a motion for the traffic study for Katrina to follow through on that. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to request funds for the traffic study.
Okay, the motion's made. Is there a second?
Second it.
Second, all those in favor, vote.
Yep.
Aye. Okay, that's
Do we need to
resolves that.
continue?
We're going to move on now with the,
Continue.
we're going to have a site walk.
We have to vote to continue.
You voted the sidewalk.
I'm going to continue.
Right, do we have to vote
I was gonna-
on that? Yeah, we need to vote on
I
that.
was just going to include the site walk in it. Is that,
Oh, I thought you already
I was just going to mention that we're going to have a site walk and we're going to continue, and I was going to ask for a vote to continue.
Okay,
Yeah,
Are we okay?
you're okay.
go for it.
Great to have a boss. We're going to have the site walk June 15th at 9 a.m. and continue this matter to June 27th. Is there a motion?
7 o'clock p.m.
At 7 p.m.
I'll move to continue to June 27th.
Motion's made. There is second?
Second.
Second. All those in favor, vote. Aye. Unanimous.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your time. See you on the 15th.
Thank you, Council. Next item on the agenda, I'm going to move to number 5, Riverview, permit number 1069. I believe, did we open that?
I
We
got a
did
letter
open it.
here. Yeah, I got a
Yes,
letter.
you have opened
Hiding
it.
out there.
They're asking for a continuance per this letter.
Just read it into the record.
To the Board of Appeals, and this is dated May 17th, on behalf of Christopher Dieo, 5 Riverview Drive. We ask for a continuance to June 27th, 7 p.m., 2019 Zoning Board of Appeals regarding the special permit application 10069. That's from Gregory Bernard.
So request for continuance, do we have a motion?
I'll move to continue.
Motion's made, second?
Second.
Second, all those in favor, vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, matter is continued to June 27th. And the next item on the agenda is 221 South Main Street, permit number 1072. And this has been opened.
Yeah, we have one comment, that's all.
Okay.
Wait till she does her thing.
Please,
Oh, I thought you
Counsel.
were going to read something. I apologize.
No, we'll wait, let her know.
You want to do your thing first?
Yeah,
Or-
please, go and move.
Good evening,
With the
Jill Mann
letter
here on
and
behalf of 7 River Street LLC, the applicant in connection with a modification to an existing site plan and a modification to a special permit and the issuance of a special permit. Here with me this evening is Chris Bradges from Williams Bradges, the site design engineer, and the principals Dylan Kelly and Warren Kelly of the owner. What we had done, because the board had asked us to last time, is just to show you what the changes were. Katrina, do you have that yellow plan that I had sent?
Yes.
So what we had done is, because I think it is a good idea just to go over what the changes were from the prior plan to this plan relative to, relative to what was on the approved plan. So basically, when we were here last time, we had to do a lot of things, and we have done them. So if you had gone out to the site, you would note, oop,
I'm just making it bigger.
There you go. That's good. You note that this area had been loamed and seeded, as requested by the board. That was that.
I did notice that, yes, and it's growing nicely.
There you go. But hopefully
In the right
rain will
way.
come. There. So basically, what shows in the yellow are the changes. So in the yellow, you'll see right in here, it used to be pavement or, crushed rock. Now it's grass. In this area right here, there used to be pavement, and now it's expanded to be grass. This was always 4 parking spaces. This was 3 parking spaces before. Now it's expanded to be able to be 4 parking spaces, and this little island right here, if you can see it, was created. That was one of the changes to the front. And then as well on the side, there was really no change. But right in here, there was a little bit of a change because there used to be 2 parking spaces here, or 1 parking space, and now there's no parking spaces in this area. And then in the back of the building, there was a change because there were a certain number of parking spaces back here, and I have to put my glasses on because I'm not able to read my own writing without them. So in that particular area, right here, there used to be 9 parking spaces. We had to go down to 6 because of the reader board. So that was the change there. In this part of the building, I apologize a lot, there used to be only like 5 spaces, and then we increased it to 9. We were able to do that back here. And then in this area, in the old plan, there were parallel parking spaces, and what Mr. Kelly did for the benefit of the retail center, he actually took out the parallel spaces and made, I think they call perpendicular spaces, they're perpendicular, and he actually went from 5 parking spaces to 9. So those are the changes to the lot. That was all the changes that were made, other than clearly the addition of the rear building. So basically what we had done from the last part of the building, this building used to be about 11,000 square feet. We've reduced it to 7,825 or 65 feet. So we reduced the size of the building, and we actually reduced the size of, well, actually kind of increased the size of the storage behind. The way in which, here you go, here's the storage. This is the grass. This is the storage area. You'll notice that I did update the the parking table. The parking table actually was accurate relative to the size of the lots, but what I had the engineer do is just indicate how many of the different types. So when you see restaurant or fast food, you'll see it says 2, because Middleton House of Pizza classified as fast food, and so does Soul Bean. So that's why the 150 parking, 150 square feet, 1 space, that's shown now. And then same for Soul Bean, and I just added and modified that table. So it's just to show in parentheses how many of those particular enterprises there are under the different use categories for parking. In addition to that, how are we actually going to traverse back here? The way in which we were originally going to traverse on the old plan was showing it potentially coming in here, potentially coming around, because Mr. Kelly did not have the right to use Runlet Way. But remember, we had that conversation that the reciprocal easement did actually benefit that property, so it was the tri-party agreement with Mr. Richardson, Mr. Fortin, and Mr. Kelly, and their entities really, to develop Runlet Way so that each of those enterprises could use it. So at this point, the way in which Mr. Kelly would actually, or this complex, whoever would rent these particular units, will come in off of Runlet Way and will not traverse through. In addition, the reason why we have definitely let people know that they are not to park across the street, that the way parking is supposed to be is you're supposed to limit it to the lot. And then the only traffic that really comes around here is the traffic that goes through for the drive-through. But the traffic that will go for this particular building will go along Runlet and come in. So that's basically the traffic pattern. So from the last time we came, we had a lot of issues, right? We were saying, okay, maybe we're going to develop a building this big, maybe we're going to go that big. So Mr. Kelly went back and he said, Jill, I'm only going to put in a 7,800 square foot building. It's set. The amount of area for storage, and boat storage and equipment storage, set. It's on the plan. So at this point, what we're seeking is to be able to modify the site plan to add the back building, and to be able to reduce the existing storage area to the whole back, which was 30,000 square feet, and now it'll be an 8,000 square foot area and a 1,900 square foot area. Both of those particular storage spaces are fenced. They do have a gate in both instances. And there is enough parking for the entire complex. Matter of fact, there's more than enough parking in this area, and it's shown on the table. And none of these parking spaces in the storage area are counted. That 114 spaces does not count, does not include, I should say, any of those parking spaces, because if it's used as storage, you can't double count it. So even if people were to park back there, you know, the people whose businesses they are, we still couldn't double count them, so they aren't. I want to make sure you knew that. So at this point, we still are looking for this board to approve the development, the further development. It's the position of the petitioner that the use of this particular property to have another building, especially that would take away some of the outdoor storage component and convert it to a more taxable enterprise, is more beneficial to the town, and that because of the fact that it is now, that Mr. Kelly now does have the right to use Rundlet Way, that particular type of use is appropriate and it's advantageous, and the development of the lot provides for the safety of pedestrian traffic and flow, because the pedestrian traffic and flow doesn't alter at all in the front part of the lot. All the traffic for that building will go only over Rundlet, not through the particular complex, which is key. Here is a new visual, if you will, of the property that will be behind, or the rear building. The rear building, as I said, did get cut in half by about it got cut by about 30%. And this is the new building. Trying to think. So that's basically it. Now, what we're doing, again, we modified the site plan to allow for the addition of the rear building and for those slight modifications, because we did have a modification that required us to come back to the board because we had to complete our site plan for the front. We are also here to seek, as I had said, a modification to the special permit. We have received a special permit also for the drive-through, but also for a boat dealership with accessory storage. That boat dealership was going to take one of the units located in the front building. That is no longer going to be the case. We're going to locate the boat dealership in the rear building, and then we will have some boat storage in the back potentially. But again, it's much less. The other plan had 30,000 square feet of boat storage on it. Fenced in, but 30,000 square feet of boat storage. And this one does provide even more parking for the entire complex, because we were able to add this entire area of parking.
Put that area again, please. I didn't see it.
Oh, right here, right here. That's all additional parking that is available for the whole complex. And then there was a question about whether or not we were going to keep a curb here. We have to keep the curb because we're trying to control stormwater flow from one to the other, because we have to direct it to the basins. So in fact, that curb does stay, but they can traverse without ever exiting the property. If people wanted to, if people came in here for some reason, they could easily get out and go back in and park. So that's what we're doing for the modification of the boat storage, literally shifting the location of the boat storage from the front building, boat dealership and storage, to the back building, and then reducing the area. The second component was that special permit that we were seeking for equipment, for contractor offices and storage. So in Middleton, contractor offices, I don't know if it was intended or if it was just a default under the use category, contractor offices require a special permit under the use table. It does. So it says contractor office and equipment storage. So that's what we were proposing as well. So there's a possibility, for example, if we were to rent to some type of contractor, mason, even a landscaper, that they would have larger vehicles and they would park in the equipment storage area. And it's possible they would have some materials as well. And again, that would be in the equipment and general storage area. So those are the three forms of relief: a modification to the site plan, a modification to the special permit, and then a new special permit. And if it pleases the board, any questions you may have, I'm ready to answer.
You got any questions? I have one.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Attorney Mann, I got a few questions.
Please.
We've been down this road before. I know I have. What are they going to use in that building specifically today and 6 months from now?
I have no idea.
Okay. Is it gonna be used for the boats that you're talking about tonight? Is it gonna be for offices, rental offices? Is it gonna create a traffic scenario? If that's what you're telling me, you didn't say that a few minutes ago. You talked strictly about the boats. When we voted this in about a year or two ago, we were very convinced that, and I know his plans changed, that you're going to do the retail, which you did great. I don't think there's enough parking, but he's fixed that now. And the rest of it was supposed to be boats, and we agreed to it on this board, I believe, because of some of the movement of traffic. We figured, and one of the arguments you had, if I remember correctly, is, well, it's seasonal, the boats come in, boom, boom, in October, and they go back out in April, so it's not going to create any more traffic. That being said, that was one of the main reasons why I think this board gave approval for this, the front project. Now we're back again talking about another building which is going to create that corner, which is really a havoc on a Saturday. You can't get near that place, and add more traffic to that. Am I to believe in your first statement about boats and storage, you keep on saying storage boats, and then you said, no, you can't tell me what's in the building. Before I vote on this here, I want to know what's going in the building. If it's going to be a situation where it's going up for, is he going to rent it out to contractors? I want to know what's going on in the building, because we don't want to, I'm sure some of them, and I'm only speaking for myself, we're not going to vote for A and then end up with B tomorrow.
Okay, so-
That's my question.
So with regard to use, it is extremely atypical to actually know what they're going to be. Plus, tomorrow, we could say it is, and we could rent it, and we can change it anytime. It's the right of zoning. So any by right use can go in without any repeat to this board. So the reason why we keep mentioning boat storage is because you would use the most burdensome, or that which would require a special permit. That is the boat storage. And so is a contractor yard. If this were to be only boat storage in a contractor yard, that's the most burdensome use, and that's what we're asking for. If it would be offices, it would be the least burdensome of use and permitted by right. That's-
Wait.
A special permit is required because.
No, I'm just,
oh,
we're talking burdens here, and you're saying storage of boats is more burdensome than if that was an office building?
If you have, boat storage requires a special permit, has a higher,
Right.
it has a higher threshold. If it's an equipment storage yard or a boat storage yard, our bylaw says that's a higher burden, that's why it's a special permit.
But it's not a higher burden on the property in terms of parking, which is one of the issues, right?
I don't think it's a higher burden no matter what you do, because if it were a by right use, it's an absolute no burden because it's a by right use. So there's no higher threshold. So the reason why we always ask for and make known the higher, the more burdensome use, according to the bylaw, we say it because that's what requires a special permit. It isn't my personal opinion of what is more burdensome. I don't think any of them are really more burdensome. If it's going to be boats, it'll come in off of Rundlet Way. It isn't going to come through the property anymore, because when it was coming through the property, having it be seasonal was much better, because you had to funnel through with the drive-through traffic. Now, you actually have a lot of egress points. I mean, you have Rundlet Way, which handles heavy traffic now. I mean, it handles other industrial uses, and handles the park, the little retail center across the street, and it will handle the later development of the Richardson parcel when and if they develop that. And it's a fairly broad entrance point. And that doesn't interfere because it doesn't flow through the park any longer.
Right.
But with regard to, what the use is going to be, I personally would assume it's going to be contractor bays and storage, because that's the most burdensome. If it reverts and ends up being an office, seem to be less burdensome. And then that means you wouldn't have, the storage if it weren't boats and weren't storage. You'd have even more parking.
Right, but let's just play devil's advocate here.
Yeah.
So instead of storage, you decide to develop that whole building for offices, which you can do as a rent, let's say. Okay? Your parking table goes down the tubes if you do that.
No, because I didn't include, if that happens, then I don't have the storage, and all of those parking spaces behind now become added to your parking table. That's why I purposely didn't add them to the parking table. So now you get somewhere like 20 more parking spaces. And even if you were to look at the most, office, even if you
Which would
said,
put you right at the minimum.
no,
Yes, it would. I can do the math. It's right here. I mean, it's, if you switch that storage space, which is approximately 4,000 square feet.
Yep.
And you switch it over to now one space per 200 feet,
yep,
okay? There's your 20 spaces right there, right?
one per, it's 250, isn't it, for it? It's a lower burden for office.
200 square feet per, well, according to your,
Is it business, I don't remember off the top of my head.
yeah,
Is it
it's
business?
200,
Okay,
it's
so
200
5
square feet
1,000.
per space for business office.
Yep.
So if you add if you put those 4,000 square feet back in, you need you need those additional 16 spots.
But don't forget, and you may, I have to go back and refigure the table, but don't forget the table already includes, I already included spaces for that back building. So if you look at the parking table, you have to reduce out.
I'm not saying you're not hitting the
Yeah.
minimum. What I'm
Oh,
saying is
we exceed, yeah.
the minimum, doing the minimum with this property is why we're in a mess.
Even if you did the minimum, we exceed, because again, I didn't count any of those spaces. And when you look at the parking table, I actually provided for.
16
the-
additional parking spaces.
Yeah, for
right.
just the rear building. So I'm overparked. I mean, and that's only, if each of those offices were to actually take up, that's not even how you.
I'm just
Be
going
some
off of
common
what the
space, and you
table
measure
says.
from the inside, we have it's less burdensome and it's more available parking because they have that rear lot.
I guess I'd like a traffic study if we're gonna look at any additional use that isn't already permitted there, because I don't, you've already proven by the fact that when this development was going in, you didn't stick to the site plan because of concerns about parking and travel. So now we're changing the site plan again, because there's all kinds of concerns with the people that travel there. So I think it's really, I don't see how we can approve this without having a full-blown traffic study done on the site.
A full-blown traffic study here would be exceptionally unusual. You're adding 7,000 square feet. I mean, there's never, ever, ever been anyone who has access to a street to access a property for 7,000 square feet that would need a traffic study. If there were an issue relative to it, I could understand, but the front portion of the building is developed. We're adding 7,000 square feet. That is
But
a lot to ask for.
But I think, Jill, if we had looked at this as a whole at the beginning, we would have demanded a traffic study.
We have never done that on 114. I can name 20 projects.
And
lot of
20
them.
projects haven't come back the way this project's come back, though. Right?
The reason this project.
Which of those 20 projects have actually been built, other than the way that the site plan called for, then got forced to come back and have to redo their site plan again, then came back, added to the site plan again, and then we're supposed to go back to 2017 and say, yeah, whatever the conditions were then are okay in 2019? I mean, this is a very unique site, has a very unique traffic pattern that, if you can find another site in Middleton that is similar to this, please present it as a comparable. But because of the unique nature of this site, I think it is appropriate to have a traffic study performed.
I got a comment on that too. You know, we've talked about this traffic issue in the front part, and we know that it meets the minimum requirements. But it's an extremely busy place.
It is.
And the recent minor modification to the House of Pizza should stress that. You weren't aware there was a minor modification to the
Car
House
that
of
went into
Pizza?
it?
What happened to that?
Drove
Somebody
through.
went through the
Unintentional.
front
It was a
door.
traffic issue.
Our car
Oh, a
drove
traffic
into
issue.
it.
Really?
Apparently.
Which indicates that, you know, there is a problem.
That's
I
not
didn't know
really
what
a
you're talking about.
traffic issue, though.
Well, this is something that the board's concerned about. We have nothing to do with the fact that that incident took place. But now you're asking to change a plan that the board already approved and modify it. And the board is concerned about parking, and you're trying to minimize it.
I am not trying to minimize. I'm merely pointing out that if this particular building were permitted by right, there's a lot of extra parking. And I'm trying to point out the fact that I understand there was a modification to the plan. I mean, this building truly just does not rise to the level of a traffic study. It just doesn't. There is nothing, you'd have to demonstrate a tremendous burden. You're talking about 7,000 square feet. Even if every single solitary boat that Bayard Marine owns were to traverse this property, you wouldn't give rise to the level of cars. I don't even know where.
We're not asking for a traffic study of the interior of the building.
But I'm
Right,
trying,
because the
where
interior of the
though?
building is 7,500 square
Okay,
feet.
I guess
The
this-
whole site is what we're asking to be.
Why
to be
would we ever
analyzed.
have to do something for the front of, now that we would never have to do.
Oh.
The front of the building?
You're not changing the front of the building?
No, we are not.
Wait a minute. Wait, is that because you already built it out that doesn't comply
There
with
is
the
the
original
only
site
change to
plan?
the traffic flow, the only change is none.
I'm sorry,
There is not one change to traffic flow on that site, not one,
Attorney Mann,
not
if
one.
you, Attorney Mann, come on. If you
Show me what
change-
it is.
All those parking spaces that you changed from parallel to perpendicular that you described at the beginning,
Uh-huh.
that's a change in the traffic flow.
It-
Yes, it is, because then now they're pulling in and backing out straight.
Oh, I understand what you mean. I
Excuse me,
understand
Attorney
what you
Mann,
mean.
your professional engineer is sitting behind you. Mr. Spragis,
He can answer it.
does changing parking spaces from parallel to perpendicular change traffic flow?
I would think it makes it better.
I have to concur with Attorney Mann that this size building doesn't even come close to
I
the
asked you a
level of
specific question.
requiring a traffic
Does-
study.
Does changing the parking pattern from parallel to perpendicular
Can I tell them?
change the traffic flow?
I understand the question.
It's right here, this is
Yeah,
where it was.
yeah, sure, I understand the question. It changes the flow of traffic within the site.
Right, and that's what we're trying to do. We want a traffic study for the site, for the impact for the road that it's off of. I mean, these are all the things that we want to be as part of, to be studied. So yes, you're saying in your professional opinion as a professional engineer, changing parking spaces from parallel to perpendicular changes traffic flow.
It does.
Thank you. So, and those parking spaces are in the front of the lot, correct?
I apologize.
The parking spaces that change from parallel to perpendicular are
100%.
on the
Yep,
front of
they
the
are.
lot?
No, they're in
Okay.
the rear.
They're in the rear?
Yeah.
Behind.
Well, they're behind.
This is the main
Behind the
building.
Behind,
But they're
He
part
meant-
of the original site plan
yeah,
that was
yeah.
2017. So that site plan is now up for discussion as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yes, once you're modifying, the whole thing is on the table.
It was represented to the board that there would be no discussion of the front of the lot, and I was just making sure that we're all talking about the same thing.
That's why we ended up with the right-of-way the last time we talked
Oh,
about
I
this.
said no,
and they
no
addressed
traffic
that.
impact. Yeah, I mean, to me, that wasn't, I understand what you're saying because they will back up. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that they're backing up into the drive-through lane is a little troubling to me.
By the way, when they did the parallel, you have to back in, you do as well, because you have to get in and out. So you have to, the only way to get in and out of a parallel space is to pull alongside and get in and get out.
Right, but you're not,
I'm just saying, you do get in and get out, but Chris said that there's an impact, I'm not gonna disagree. There's an impact, but you do
especially
have
on
to
a
get
site
in
where
and get out.
the drive-through is right where you're changing those spaces. I mean, if this were a couple of years ago and that were Dunkin' Donuts, people would be losing their minds over putting parking spaces like that next to a drive-through. Like, so I just want to be clear that, we're looking at the whole site here. And it's really not fair to the board to just say, hey, everything's fine. You don't need to look at the flow of traffic through the site and the impact on the property as a whole.
So would you, in a traffic study, you're looking at the circulation within the site and the impact on 114? Or you just
Well, it's on Runlet Way, right, too?
You're talking about the whole thing, yes.
You just want
Well,
Runlet Way and the internal
interior.
circulation or the effect on 114?
Yeah, but the
The effect-
drive-through comes back out onto 114.
Okay.
But
The
but
drive-through
there's
is part
no,
of the question.
there's absolutely no impact. This front site couldn't impact 114 anymore because it is what it is. It's not, we're not adding to the front of the building on 114 coming in and out here.
Sure you did. You just said you changed one of the parking spaces in the
No,
front of the
in and out
building.
of 114. So Katrina, I understand what you're saying, traffic flow within, so with regard to this, but there is no additional, there's no possibility of there being it is what it is. The building exists. The entrances haven't been altered at all. If anything, because he now has the right to use Runlet, the impact to those two entrances are actually reduced because you have an
Sure, a
alternative.
traffic engineer will explain and we'll,
But again,
to our
I
satisfaction.
have to tell you that I think that if that's going to be the case, we're going to put back the spaces to parallel. And we'll do that, so then we won't have an impact on the front property. I mean, we can do that. It's too bad because they would like more parking, but he's willing to go back to parallel parking. He will. The need to go back, it's just,
This parking was to help your tenants and the people traversing through. So if you have to pay money for a traffic study,
And you're
you
saying you
would just
need it.
assume,
it isn't about going back, it's the
Inconvenience your
timing
people.
of it, to go back and get a traffic report and then come back to the board again. It is a lot of burden to ask somebody to do that, because the traffic engineer, I don't even know, I mean, people are stopped driving into a drive-through lane. I mean, if you look at Dunkin' Donuts up the street, they back into the drive-through lane. If you look, God help us, the one at 114, they back. Look at McDonald's drive-through. I mean, that's just, that's the nature of a parking lot. Look at all of the parking lots. Look at Market Basket. You back up into lanes of traffic when you have those types of spaces.
I kind of agree with Jill on this one.
But
An
you're not-
an
you can't
engineer
compare
has
Dunkin'
engineered the
Donuts to
plan.
situation.
But
But
an
you can-
engineer engineered the plan. You don't need a traffic engineer to re-engineer a parking lot. If the engineer is standing by the design, this isn't a traffic study. This is an engineering.
But we're
Review.
getting away from the original situation.
I get that. I understand that, but
We did this here, we agreed to it.
I
Now
agree.
we're adding this here. I want to see what the whole picture looks like as a whole.
but isn't that what we're looking
You know,
at?
Well, no, it isn't. Wait a minute, if I may, Chairman.
Yep, please.
No, it isn't, because you got half in, now you're gonna go for another half of something different. How does that affect that whole area? Even though you got the first one in, now you're coming back for the second one. I wanna know how it affects the entire area. It may not affect it at all, but we have the right to know that.
Yeah,
Before we-
and I don't understand how, last meeting you said you'd be more than happy to do a traffic study, and now all of a sudden, you won't do a traffic
Did I
study.
say that?
Yeah, it's in the minutes from last
I
meeting.
think I said that Chris would tell you about the traffic.
No, it's in the minutes that got approved. It's
I gotta look at that, because honestly, I have to read.
online, you can watch the whole meeting, I mean.
Traffic study?
hold on, I'll look it up. You keep talking, I'll look it up.
I think something the board has to look at too is, we talk about Market Basket and Dunkin' Donuts, we're talking about parking in private property that isn't gonna change. What we're talking about here is modifying a plan that has effect on the street, that has a potential for further development, that the board is gonna be coming across in the future, maybe down the road someplace.
This doesn't, so
And we
this,
have to take that into consideration over and above just the individual's idea of one building being put up and we have sufficient parking.
right, I think that, I need to see, can I see it? Because I'd like to review.
It's
the
not,
minutes.
it's not.
Yeah,
I mean, he asked for a traffic study.
I
There's
don't think
nothing
I
about
agreed
what
to
you
it.
said.
yeah, I can't imagine I would've.
You did, because I made a note of it, because I was shocked that you said, yeah, no problem, we'd be more than happy to do that for you.
I could imagine doing a traffic report by Chris, but I would never have done a traffic study, because it just doesn't, it doesn't come close to hitting any of the impacts. Like, with regard to the 66 units, you're asking what the impact will be on 114. That's not appropriate. It's just not appropriate here. It isn't. It's too small. There's not enough traffic being generated by the back building, and that's what you need to think about. Now, your question is different. You're talking about the internal flow, and if you ask the engineer, okay, really, what is the impact of cars pulling in and backing out? What really is the impact? And I have to say that I can't believe that you would think this is more impactful than what happened with Market Basket. I mean, you drive down, there are hundreds and hundreds of cars every 2 hours, and they back into those traffic patterns constantly. That's why I say, I understand, Mr. Hartwell, and I get it, but there's a lot of room, and cars aren't speeding through. They're coming in because they're going to Starbucks, but they're taking a left-hand turn. I just don't see the need for a traffic study for that. And relative to the back building, it's only 7,000 square feet. Even if it were, I don't even know what, you still have a lot of points at which to enter the project, and you go through Runlet, you don't have conflict with the front building at all. I mean, the option here is to allow a modification. I think that the board's, current position needs to really evaluate what Mr. Kelly's asking for. I get that he's making changes to the front. I get that people were, not disposed to give him his relief last time. Come back, show us really what you're gonna do. Don't give us a what-if scenario, but he has done that. And at minimum, the front lot and those changes ought to be approved tonight, because all they do is create a scenario that is almost identical to what it was before. I get that the parallel spaces are a little different. I mean, the perpendicular space is a little different than parallel, but in my experience, the way people park in perpendicular spaces is quite atrocious. I don't think people in Boston can park in parallel spaces. I think they're horrible, actually. And in order to, by the way, park in a parallel, you have to pull forward. If there is a parking car behind you and in front of you, you pull aside that car and back in. Here, you just pull in. You're not backing in. That is probably less beneficial than a parking space, I would think, than parallel and perpendicular.
It gives each of the tenants an opportunity to ask their employees to park in those spaces. Where
And then they
cars
can
are not
sit
gonna
there.
move. Right.
So, I mean, we could even do that, but the point is I just think that, the front lot, the changes made are on the plan now, we have them, they're defined, it went back to what it was, they grassed like you asked, he has shown you all of the changes made. We would ask that you approve the site plan, I mean,
I would tend to be more satisfied if we designated those as employee parking spots, which we had asked for last time, actually. I think we had talked about that.
just where you
Those
put in
parallel.
perpendicular,
I'll
keep
get
screwing
rid
up.
of them and go parallel.
I'm asking you, can you make those perpendicular spaces?
On the
can you
drive-through lane.
Make them employee now?
What about the ones in the back?
In the
Yep.
back.
That's what they are now.
They are employee.
That's what they are.
He-
They're
he'll-
not, is there a sign there that says that?
If you want me to put a bunch of signs, I didn't put signs because
Well, there probably should be, because people will pull in if there's an empty
I
one.
agree. We can, you designate them, he'll designate them employee,
I
that's
mean,
not
that
a
would
problem.
satisfy me that people aren't pulling in and out
'Cause
into
they
that
s-
traffic lane if those are
They
designated
stay.
employee spots like we do in other
ones
parking
right along
lots
the back.
of businesses.
I agree, yeah, absolutely,
Yeah, I
he'll
mean,
do
I
that.
totally get that. And that was our biggest concern, was people
And I
pulling
remember
into
from
that
Mrs.
drive-through.
McPherson, you had basically said, and that's why I wanted to talk specifically about the fact that, how the property was accessed with regard to the back. But nope, that's not a problem. We will designate all of those employee parking.
With
It's
signage,
better,
yeah.
it's a better use for those spaces anyway.
talk about everything in the back now.
No, Warren, right here.
Just those few spots that pull into that drive-through lane.
problem.
So people aren't pulling into that drive-through lane when people are driving through.
Right, so it's not
Kids
frequent
aren't running
use.
back and forth between.
Like somebody
those
coming in,
spots.
pulling in for 20 minutes and leaving.
Not that the board is ready to vote, but as another possible condition, how about the curb stops in the front, too?
No, we're not, I mean, you know what, I don't think that's appropriate to even ask for curb stops in the front. It isn't appropriate. It's all that, it's not as if it's a real traffic issue. I have them on my property, and all that happens is they roll down the hill in the wintertime and probably create more of an issue. I wish I'd never put them in.
To keep you to going.
And so cars are driving right into
little curb.
the grass area.
They did it when it was the snow condition, I agree. But nowhere else do we force people to do stops, and they aren't beneficial. They just aren't. Everybody moves them in the wintertime. I wish I hadn't done them.
You could put
And they
chain
rip them
in
up, and then you have the rebar sticking up. That's a problem. That's what happened to mine. If you had a hill or a slope, that's different.
You finished, Counsel?
Yep, whatever the board likes, yep.
Okay. Read the correspondence, please.
Sure. Stated May 16th to the Board of Appeals, this letter is to support Mr. Kelly's request to change the use of the rear lot at 221 South Main Street from boat storage to a building with parking. I believe when Mr. Kelly built the first building, the parking requirements are underestimated. There are 78 spaces total, 4 for handicap parking, leaving 74 viable spaces. I polled my co-tenants, and on an average day, there are 35 employees parking at the building, leaving 39 spaces for 7 tenants. Starbucks alone does a business citing 40%, which is for customers who dine inside as opposed to drive-through. B-Tone's classes are 12 people. The hair salon can operate 12 stylists, which seats 12 clients. Soul Bean has a permit for 28 seats, and we do a heavy takeout business. Clearly, 5 to 6 spaces per tenant are just not enough. To Mr. Kelly's credit, the new plan he is proposing is a solution to remedy the current parking problem. making the first plaza safer and more functional. I'm certain if his petition doesn't go through, the space will be boat storage and additional parking won't be an option. Solbein regularly invests in our community, and we've invested over $500,000 in building our new space with the promise of better facility, including parking. On behalf of Solbein and my fellow tenants, I wish to encourage you to favorably consider Mr. Kelly's new plans that will provide much-needed parking, and that's from Danielle Panton she's the owner of Solbein Kitchen. That's all we have.
Is there anyone else here to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone here to speak against the application?
I'm not against the application.
Excuse me, just a minute.
No, go ahead, Paul. I've been
Yeah,
up plenty of
just a
times.
minute, I recognize this young lady. You let her come up, please. I didn't realize you were still here.
I am. Teresa Bono, 25 Dixie Drive. I'm actually interested more in this rear facility, because it looks, from what I see in the description in the application and the way Attorney Mann had described it, as being basically contractor bays and storage. And in the application, it says, in order to offer space in the rear building to contractor businesses and to allow such businesses to store equipment and materials both inside of the building and the outdoor storage yard. And I know when we look at the table of uses, that this is a business district, and you can have, you can go in front of the ZBA if you are a business where you do boat sales and get a special permit. And if you are a contracting or landscaping business, same thing, special permit in front of the ZBA. However, I do note that every time this building is being described, it's being described as a storage facility. And if you look on the table of uses, under D Industrial, number 6, and if you look in a business district, you are not allowed to have a storage facility. So if they want to have this facility as a storage facility inside, then really the process is not a special permit, it's actually a use variance, like we were just talking about earlier. The other thing that I found very interesting about this was basically what you would do then is you're doing a use variance and you're saying, okay, you can have a storage facility there, so you're saying that you can have an industrial use, because right now the only place that you can do a storage facility without a use variance is in an industrial M1 district. So you basically do a use variance and you redistrict it. At our May 2018 town meeting, this parcel, as well as other parcels that were adjacent to this, were part of a citizen's petition to be moved from business zoning to M1 zoning, and it failed. So I just find this all very interesting, because it seems to me the process here should be a use variance, and it really is for a use that the town has already rejected. So that's why I'm opposed to this, because I think this process is wrong. I think it should be going through a use variance. And I think, quite frankly, again, like I've said earlier, the town has made it very clear. They want us to look at updating zoning regulations. And the town made it very clear with this parcel in particular that they did not want to see it being used for industrial purposes. I understand that they're saying they're going to be contracting businesses in this facility. But it's somebody who has a boat business that is also using his business as a storage business for these contractors. To your point, Mr. Yeba, who's going to be in there? What kind of a contractor you can have? You can have a building contractor, you can have a hazardous waste contractor. You're not going to know who's in there. the way this use is set up is that if a contractor comes before you and says, hey, I'm a plumbing contractor, and I bought this parcel, and I want to be able to have my business here, so I'm looking for a special permit because I'm a plumbing contractor, it's going to be my business, and I'm going to have a storage, area there. But it provides all of you with the opportunity to know exactly what business is going to be going there, whether it's contracting, whether it's boat and sales, that's the whole process of a special permit.
Not to
If you
interrupt you,
do this-
but that's the question that I had asked. I'd like to
Exactly.
know what's in the
If you do
building.
this, you will have no way of controlling what kind of contracting business goes in there. And I think that's the whole reason why you do it in an industrial park, because you don't know what you're going to get. So that is my point regarding that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can Scott maybe speak to that a little
Yep.
bit?
Mr. Richardson?
After Mr. Richardson.
The red button.
Oh, good. Paul Richardson, Peabody Street, Middleton. The Richardsons have no complaint about this building. The problem is, the first building never had enough parking, and parking that he's proposing right here for the second building is already being used by the first building.
Yeah, I did notice that.
Oh, it's full.
Yeah.
Plus, on my land over here, there's 6 to 8 people parking. I get an email from Warren every 3 days that I gotta keep my construction stuff off the road, which is run that way, but I can't keep things off the road because he's got his people parking on my land. I just, we need to
Saw that too. Yeah.
solve that. We need to solve the parking problem, that's all. The storage building is wonderful, put in this area. It's the best thing for this area. Doesn't use not much of traffic, so I totally agree with him. He's done a fine job, and don't turn those back to parallel parking, because that's a lot of parking right there. That's all. We're for the building.
Can Scott speak to that use issue?
The petition is properly before us. The special permit use is not a variance. The storage, and maybe the storage terms being thrown around generically here, the storage that Ms. Bono is referring to, the industrial use, self-storage, the warehousing, that category is only allowed in M1. That's not what this petition is. This petition is contractor bays, storage of contractor tools, equipment, materials, office space, storage of boats. It's not generic storage, it's not warehousing, it's not self-storage. It's the two uses allowed in the B district by a special permit by this board. The petition
That's your
is-
interpretation
That's my
of that.
interpretation. The petition is properly in front of you. It's not warehouse, it's contractor base. It's boat storage. Both are allowed. Boat storage accessory only when the sale's on the property.
In the word office, we don't see an office building there, even though it may be permitted? It
Right.
reads to the traffic city area.
It
That's what it
changes
does.
parking
It changes
calculations.
the whole thing.
But
That's the
as-
question.
but-
If,
But the
the
question
problem-
was that the petition wasn't properly in front of the board as a special permit as opposed to a variance. It's not a use variance, it's not the storage category.
Feeling fairly certain about that?
I'm 100% certain about that. If he wants that storage, that type of storage, that would be a use variance similar to the self-storage facility. That's not what was applied for. What was applied for is properly in front of the board.
Anyone else to speak against the
Yeah, so I
application?
think you need to talk about this parking issue, because I've noticed that too. They're parking up along Runlet Way. They're already using up those back parking spots even before they've been approved.
Yeah, I mean, Mr. Kelly has actually spoken to the proprietors who have been parking, on the Richardson parcel. I mean, we have literally put flyers on cars, we have gone out, we have talked to the individual proprietors, and it's my understanding that whoever was contributing to the issues actually attenuated that, and I believe that the if you will, over-demand has been reduced by some activities undertaken by the people in the particular project. People were overusing their project, doing things, having events, and overloading, and maybe having too many seats or something of that nature. That's no longer the case. So now, it's my understanding that there isn't as bad an impact anymore.
It seemed to be a seasonal thing. You'll probably do that again next year, so you're gonna have that
I
problem
mean,
again.
and if, you know, when you do those events, I think once once the facility gets going and kind of really solidifies, it'll be a little easier to absorb the parking, because in the current condition, you know, they were parking on the Richardson property, and no matter how hard, you know, you try to not have it happen, people were parking there, and they shouldn't. It's not the property, and it's a project under construction, and we recognize that, and definitely tried to get them to stop. And I think some of that.
Some signs that say no parking, like some
I
poles.
think you actually flyers.
Signs up.
Like poles and.
I've put signs with poles, I've ticketed people, I've called the police, just so you all know. There could be 20 empty spaces out back, and people still park on the side of the road because they don't want to walk. And you could check, I've literally had the police, I put stakes in the ground, and I've made up tickets to put in windshields, but that's not, I'm not responsible for arresting people for that.
Police parking on the private property, trespass total, we'll get the hand.
And that's the next step.
This whole
There
step
were,
was just to
like,
add parking.
mounds of gravel that seemed to be working well, and then the last time I looked, they weren't there anymore.
I mean, it's because honestly, but the property it's a construction site, so you're gonna see staging, you're gonna see removal, and that's why.
They were very
And that's
specifically
why,
put
honestly,
there.
it's important to the Richardson family, and it's important to the Kelly family, that people stay off of the Richardson property, because it's a construction area, it is, and people should stay off. So, Mr. Kelly's done as much as he possibly can to keep them off, and it's actually, I think it's working better. It's not perfect yet, because I think they're still trying to park on the street, but it's working better, and I don't disagree. I think, you know, a couple of towed cars would probably speak volumes, and maybe that's gonna be, unfortunately for Mr. Kelly, the next thing he's gonna have to do, because he doesn't want to do that. Nobody wants to do that, especially to Middleton residents who are using these facilities, because there are open spaces when they're doing it, by the way.
So wait a minute, so the parking's enough. But if we gotta tow some of our customers, then so be it.
You didn't hear. I said, you have to listen very closely, because what
trying.
was said was, there are open parking spaces, and people don't want to park. Let's face it.
So the open parking spaces
Everybody
aren't
wants to
where they
park.
need to be.
I think people should think about the calories they can burn from walking, but I think they don't. And I think they want to be close. That's my methodology, park at the back of the lot. But I think that honestly, it's true, but they shouldn't be, it's like anything else. You can't, you know, you can't make people not commit an illegal act unless you do something extreme. And we're hoping we don't have to, and yeah, that did work when they're staging materials. We have signs, and we're trying. And you know what? The Richardsons have been very good, and we'd like to have more impediments, you know, that'd be good. We don't want people to park on their property, it's not right.
I've asked
It's not
them to put a fence or stakes along there. I have not had one retail person outside of the situation behind Solbein complain. That's just the reality. Not one has complained. The flow's in and out, they're all thriving in business.
So the suggestion is, our parking is either insufficient in number or insufficient in location, so the abutter should expend money to put up a fence, so that the overflow parking doesn't go on their property?
What?
No.
Because you just said they should put up a fence to keep
Because they have to bring
your customers off their
I
property.
didn't say that.
You did.
I said I asked them to put a fence up because their construction equipment's going down there, and if people park there, then their construction equipment can't go down there. So if they put a fence, no one can park there, hence their construction equipment, which has nothing to do with me, can go down the road. Totally different than what you're saying, I'm trying to solve the problems so that their construction vehicles can get down there.
Yeah.
And people are lazy. I'm telling you, it could be, I put the parking back, it could be 10 empty spaces, people will still park there if they see the gravel, because they don't want to walk. That's not, it's nothing to do with parking, they don't want to walk.
I mean, I think with regard to, how how both parties can handle, not allowing it to happen, I think they're gonna have to work it out between themselves, and I think I hope they will. But with regard to this particular application before you, what we would really like to be able to do is to be able to get the front project at least approved. If the board is not inclined to grant the back project and it wants to do this in pieces, then my guess is what we're willing to do is just withdraw it, we're gonna keep it as the boat storage, and then at least allow us to finalize the front, deliver the as-built plan. Yeah, we would love to be able to develop this as a building. I think it's far superior to boat storage. We need to be able to move forward with at least the front of the building because we need it to be done.
Counsel, would you refresh my memory for me? I know
Please.
back when we talked about Runtle Way
Yeah.
a couple of years ago, and we agreed that there was gonna be access to the strip mall on the right when
Sure.
the dog kennel place went in. That was before the board, and there was permission granted that Runtle Way would be a public way for like 500 feet, and then it was gonna be a private way. Am I recalling
is-
that correctly?
No.
That's not correct.
No, what is?
They've had the right-of-way.
Please help me.
The doggy daycare place has had the right-of-way for, 20 years, 25 years on my property.
Okay,
So,
Wasn't there something about the right-of-way just into that parking lot and the rest of it was gonna be private?
No, I think, you know what, I think this could be, remember, it was, okay, I think he might be talking about Thornton, airtight. Okay, so originally, the Runlet Way was the Richardson Green's ownership, Runlet Way. So that's that large parcel of land that goes back, and that's all Richardson land, it's theirs, they own it. In February of 2018, the Richardson family, the Kellys, and the people who own Airtight got together and they created I call a reciprocal easement. So what was done, and that's why you had the parking spaces removed. So what was done was Mr. Kelly gave, there's an easement that goes down here that Mr. Thornton can use. This is where Airtight can use that whole strip that goes down. Well, the reciprocal easement was, look, all parties now who are on this way, because it's not a street, it's Mr. Richardson's property, all these three parties can now access and use it, and the exchange was, okay, Mr. Kelly can use this, and then Mr. Richardson and Mr. Thornton can continue to use a portion of that particular easement on the Kelly property.
That's why the
what it
road's all
was.
cockeyed.
Yes, but now, once they actually finish, so it's in a development stage, so once things go forward and the road can actually be perfected and be made to be a fine entrance in, it'll be, everybody will continue to use it. But that's what happened. That's why, through the activities of the three parties, they were able to actually do this reciprocal easement, which is wonderful. That's what planning's all about. You're supposed to try and get commercial properties to use the same access point. It can't be a better thing, because then you don't have multiple openings. So now, instead of having these two openings, having an opening here for the Airtight property, and then an opening for the Richardson parcel, now we just have one opening that will service this rear lot, will service the mall,
Okay.
right?
I get it now.
Yeah,
Yep.
but I know why, it's because of the Thornton thing, because I've been here 3 times on that runway.
Okay,
Which
we
is why it was
gave
so
them
important to get
access.
those parking spaces off that easement.
You know what, they're gone, and it's grass.
Only took
And
6
it's the way it
months.
should be. It's done. It's done. So, it really, I give credit to all three parties because they did a good job. Runlet Way now is going to be an easement. It's going to be a well-developed backland. It will be, it really will make a big difference in that area. It really will, in my opinion, for what it's worth.
Thank you, Counsel.
You're very welcome, Mr. Nazaro.
Are there any other questions from the board members? Do we have a motion?
Do you want to wait for?
Yeah, you want to wait for Ann to come back?
You take a 2-minute recess?
Should give her a minute. I told her she could go, get up and go. recess for a couple.
Yeah, we'll wait for a minute.
Recess the meeting for 5 minutes.
We don't need them.
The hearing is open again. Any board members have any additional questions? If not, is there a motion?
We have to make
Peggy's
motions
not
for what?
involved in this.
He's not involved in this one.
So this would be the special permit, right?
Right.
And conditions first?
Yep.
The findings.
Findings first, yeah.
At the bottom of page 2 of 7. You could ask the board if they have read this, because this is the draft that was given to us
Yeah,
last month, right?
well, I think we want to make some changes anyway, right? Some conditions. Would that be we could put
The
them in the
conditions are all on, would be added.
to the site plan approval?
No, she's added our general conditions
Right.
at the end, and then special conditions. So if you want to add conditions, you can talk about conditions right here, and then that's just added at the end. You can, if you didn't want to read through everything.
Yeah. All right, so I'll make a motion for the findings for the application for a use variance. No, I'm sorry, I'm sorry? No use variance. Okay, on the special permit. Correct?
Are you on the bottom of page 2?
I
That's for
believe-
a site plan modification.
Right, so, okay, for the site plan modification first?
Yes.
Only? Okay. All right, I'll make a motion based on the evidence, and that demonstrates that the location of the rear building complies with the following objectives: density and dimensional requirements, traffic and conditions that will remain safe. I guess we'll talk about the condition changes on that after. Ample parking that meets minimum requirements, landscape design, signage, and screening. The addition and modification of the outdoor storage area shown on the site plans is consonant with neighborhood character. The construction will not negatively impact the natural environment. And the town will receive property tax revenue. And that's all we got for that part. We go right into the site plan approval?
So that was the site plan modification.
Right. We could put the conditions where?
Those are general conditions for everything?
That's just general conditions, right, so where, can we put the specifics under the site plan approval, yeah?
I don't know, this,
So basically, you'd vote on how, whatever the board so should feel for findings, and then you take the board action relative to each of the requests. So then you'd look at site plan approval, then you'd look at the
Okay,
special
all right.
permits.
So we'll go
That's
with-
right, Ms.
Yep,
Cody.
all right, so let's go with the general findings first of all.
Yep,
So that would be the general findings.
yep.
So someone needs a second, those general findings.
Motion's made, is there a second?
It's just general findings, yeah.
I'll second.
Okay,
Motion's made and second, all those in favor vote?
yep.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
So the site plan approval.
Whoa, whoa.
Oh,
I didn't
sorry.
vote.
I'm sorry, Nick.
You're a no.
I'm sorry.
If you're not a yes, you're a no.
If I'm not a yes, I'm not, I'm gonna abstain from the vote.
Oh,
Okay.
okay, you want to abstain?
Abstain.
Okay, 4 in favor and 1 abstain.
For the site plan approval, make a motion for that. Pursuant to the board's authority to grant relief under 9.5 of the bylaws, made on the following findings.
Pay attention to that one.
That the board determines that the rear building and changes to the outdoor storage areas as depicted on the plan represents the most advantageous development of the property, takes into consideration the legitimate interests of the adjoining property owners, will not negatively affect public safety, health, welfare, under 9.5.11 of the bylaw. So again, I'm seeing that if we want to make some conditions, we would do it here. Okay, so we're going to talk, we're going to add that
Employee parking.
the parallel parking spots in the back that are adjacent to the drive-through should have signage to indicate that they are employee parking only.
Yes.
That the, we want anything about the Richardson property and the signage over there? No?
I don't think
I
so.
don't think we
That's
have to worry
private
about that.
property,
Okay.
so that really
Anybody
has
else?
nothing to do with the application.
Yeah, anybody else have anything they want to add other than that? No?
I don't have anything more.
Okay. Okay, that would be it. That's the only special condition I have there.
Okay, motion's made, a second?
Second.
Second. All those in favor vote?
Yep.
Aye.
Aye.
Can I ask one question?
Before you vote,
Yes.
go ahead.
When you say storage area, you mean pertinent to the boating industry, right?
Yeah, so, the boat, yes, a boat would be there.
Yeah, I mean, it's,
Yes, it's,
we were talking vaguely as if storage area could be something completely out of the picture, but it's storage on boating industry.
You understand it's storage today,
Yes.
okay? Down the road, that could change.
They would have to come
That's what we
back.
discussed,
Yeah.
right, previously.
He could change it to anything else?
Possible, yeah.
Not any other kind of storage, no.
If he requires some kind of permit, special
Well, he'd have
permit,
to come back,
depending on what
Jim.
they're putting in,
Yeah, he'd have to
he has
come
to
back.
come back to the board,
Yeah,
depending on what it's gonna be.
but right now,
But
he's
right now,
locked
it's-
into a
it's-
certain use.
that's
he
great.
is, he's locked into contractor
What they're
bays.
presenting to you
boat
today, yes.
storage.
Okay,
That's
Let me
it.
clarify maybe what Nick's concern is. I'm 67, Bant Marine is going in there. 4 years from now, maybe they won't, it'll be gone. I don't, just like anyone's building, you don't know who the tenants are 4 years down the road.
We're worried about next month.
The board understands
Not 4
that.
years from now.
Okay.
So-
Continue.
I mean, I might see you again?
You grant me this, you won't see me again.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
Abstain.
4-1.
Okay, so now we're going to authorize the special permit to authorize offices for the contractor business and indoor and outdoor storage.
Yep.
Pursuant to our authority to grant relief under 9.4 of the bylaw, I'll make a motion that the board determine that the beneficial impacts of allowing the contractor business and associated indoor storage and the outdoor storage areas outweigh any adverse effects to the neighborhood, and therefore the board requesting a special permit under 3.1.2 in the table of use regulations, commercial 20, to allow the development use and the operation of outdoor storage areas as shown on the plans by a commercial contract business. Looking for a second?
Yep. Second?
I'll second.
Motion's made and second. All those in favor vote?
Yep.
Yes.
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 Passing
And
it.
then,
4-1 again?
do we have to do modification of the existing permit?
Yep.
Yes. All right, and we're making a motion that we approve the modification of the special permit authorizing the operation of the business that specializes in boat sales and allow for accessory display and storage under 3.1.2 in the table of use regulations, commercial 12 boat sales, and G accessory uses, other accessory uses to allow for the relocation of the enterprise to the rear building in the outdoor storage area.
Motion's made, is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion's made and seconded, all those in favor vote?
Yep.
Aye.
Yes. Again, 4-1.
Thank you very much, we appreciate it.
You're welcome, Tessa.
What's left?
You got another one?
Yeah, I
got the doggy
daycare.
Zoning Board of Appeals will hold a public hearing on May 23rd at Fuller Meadow on the application of Melissa Sampson for an indoor doggy daycare and retail store under section 3.1.3 of the Middleton zoning bylaw, or any additional relief the board may find necessary to house a dog daycare with retail store for dog-related items on the property located at 108 South Main Street, found in Assessor's Map 29A, parcel 186A. The butters have been notified.
Do you have my pointer?
And before you go on.
Yes?
I would like to recuse you from this.
Okay.
You're recused.
Have a good
Greg, you sit in on this?
Oh, boy.
Okay. One of you young ladies, the applicant?
I am.
Okay, would you come up and identify yourself and make a presentation? Tell us what you'd like to do.
My name's Melissa Sampson.
You gotta speak up loud now.
And I wanted to suggest opening a dog daycare at 108 South Main Street. So it would just be 2 rooms on the inside, and then a small lobby for a retail area, just for specifically dog food.
That's it?
Yeah, it's simple. There's no, like, we don't want to do an outside area, just all indoors.
Okay. The building that you're going into, or you're proposing to go into, is a first floor, and it has a business in the basement.
Yeah.
And you're gonna store dogs there?
Well, just for the day, so.
It's gonna be a day type of thing?
A day-
that
just
people would
daycare.
drop their dog off? Like
Yeah.
just a babysitting type of thing? That
Yeah.
they'd be there during the day, and then they pick them up on the way home? Is that the concept that you're
Yeah.
proposing?
So it'd just be during the day. There wouldn't be anything else.
Okay. I'm familiar with where the building is, and I know there's a business below you. Tell me how you would propose that the dogs being there above this thing. I believe there's a hardwood floor in there, and they urinate and so on. How would we
So,
cope with that it isn't gonna be a problem, both
Melissa, which
health-wise
building is it,
and
though?
noise, odor-wise and so on down below?
Yeah, I'm sorry, where is this building exactly?
It's I think it was a mattress store
This is
before
his
that.
mattress store.
Oh,
There's
do you
not a
wanna
business
point it
right
out with
next
the
to where
pointer?
Richardson's cows are.
Okay.
You know where
I know
the
the
cows
mattress
A
are.
little red button. See the red triangular button?
So it's gonna be in the
I don't know
mattress
why
store?
that's so
Yeah.
dark.
That used to be the
There's a gym
gym or in the
Yeah, it
antique?
used to be the gym.
Oh, okay.
There's an
Not
antique
used to be,
store
it is.
next to it.
What's underneath
What
it?
it's called, Lola.
Personal trainer.
something.
She understands now where it is.
Yeah, I know it.
Oh, okay.
It's a
okay.
glass building.
Yeah.
Glass front.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the way that we're
Excuse me for this, sir.
the way that we're doing the floors is, we're gonna build the walls first, and then we have a special, floor that's going in, it's like a rubber floor, and it goes 3 feet up the wall. So,
Say that again, it goes 3 feet?
so the way that the floor is gonna
Put a
be.
floor down.
A rubber floor.
Yeah, but the walls would go up first. So that way the floors can go like up
the walls. That way.
No runoff.
Waterproof.
Yeah.
It's a one-piece floor, no seams.
Yeah, no. So the floor that's
Like a big
there
swimming
now,
pool.
yeah, it wouldn't get ruined.
Right.
So we, like, even the walls that are already in there, it's the same thing.
So you're gonna wash it down each day, or how does that work?
Yeah, so like by the, like, I mean, it would be obviously throughout the day. But at the end of the day, we would just do a whole clean through of
They never
everything.
go outside?
There's no outdoor area, no.
So they're strictly all indoor all day?
Yeah.
Are they in separate cages, or is this a community type of thing, or?
Play area?
It's, so it's 2 separate rooms. So it would just be free play. So they'd be out all together all day. So we'd separate like by
Big
size.
dogs, little dogs?
Yeah.
Let me, can I ask a question? No washing?
No,
No washing?
nope, just daycare.
Not a problem? Washing would be a
How
problem.
many dogs would there be in each pen?
It's not pens.
No, they're
It's
just
an open area.
You're babysitting them.
Yeah.
You're just babysitting people's dogs.
Yeah, so they drop off, the dogs would be there for
So
like.
it's, there's
yeah.
like little couches and, well, dog couches.
Yeah, so we have like, we were gonna put in like little play structures and have them,
You
yeah.
can't use it as a remote office. There'll be a workspace for.
And where's the
Yeah.
retail part of this? I'm sorry, where?
In the front lobby, so it wasn't gonna be big. We're just gonna have like shelves on the walls, for just basic dog
And
food.
what are your hours of operation?
7 AM to 6 PM Monday through Friday, and then 9 AM to 5 PM on Saturdays, and then closed on Sundays.
You got nobody around you so to make any noise that's gonna bother anybody, you should be fine. There's nothing there, right?
The only thing I would suggest is
Underneath.
make a, part of the conditions that the floor satisfy the Board of
Board of
Health,
Health,
which he
right,
has to get a
that's-
kennel license anyways, so
Yeah.
They'll have to come in, right?
let him
Figure it out.
make sure it meets their requirement for the kennel. and-
People downstairs won't be happy.
Yeah, so the floor is actually coming from, he does like veterinary floors, so with, yeah.
They do restaurant floors too, or they put the one layer floors and they come up
Yeah.
to
Yeah,
size.
you just have to submit it along with the info for the kennel license, and if the Board of Health, who grants the kennel license, is happy with it, yes.
So there's gonna be a front lobby. Is there another door to get into the play area?
Yeah,
I'm thinking of
so-
escapees going out the front door.
That's, yeah,
Onto
that was my main
114.
concern.
Yeah.
So if you look, there's like, in the, like in this
You got the
area-
pointer?
I have it. So this would be the big room, so you'd come in from the lobby, go up the hallway, and then this is the first door. So the dog, you take their leash off and everything, then go through the second door. That way, like, if a dog gets into that area, they're not getting into the hallway. And then also, from the lobby, there's a door here, so even if they did get into the hallway, there's no way for them to get into the actual lobby.
All double doors. so
Yeah,
it's
and then
like
the same thing with the
cell.
small room. So there's the first door, and then the second door, and then into the small room.
And the employees are parking around the back or the front, or?
I don't know whose parking spots are the back. I assumed it was the
The
tenant
gym.
downstairs. Yeah, but we have, I mean, we don't need like 20 parking spaces anyways. It's gonna be really quick in and out.
Who's downstairs?
He's a personal
It was
trainer.
personal training, Jim.
In motion.
I didn't know there was anything down there.
Yeah.
That was two of us. I didn't need that.
He has a walkout basement.
Oh, so you have to
Basement
approach
down
it
the
from the
back,
back.
yeah.
Yeah, that's all one piece of land, the 3 buildings. It's a condo association.
This may be stupid. What if there's a dog fight? How quickly can staff come in and separate?
So everyone that is gonna be working there is trained for, like, specifically for those things. So, I mean, the lobby's not far from either of the rooms. I'll be there all day. I know what to do. But there'll most likely be 2 people in the big room, because they're more, you know, it's obviously more difficult to get 2 bigger dogs apart. But there'll be ways to prevent it anyways.
Will you have cameras or anything like that?
Yeah, so that'll be just for like my use or manager use. That way, like, if I'm not in the building, I can still see what's going on.
She'll have staff in the rooms with the dog.
Yeah, they'll never be alone, so, yeah.
I don't see any access to get out the rear of the building. You just have one door to come in and out, and that's,
There's
Gonna
a
be
second
the-
door on the side, so,
there's a door on the side where?
so it's,
Left,
yeah, right here,
left-hand side of the building.
yeah.
On the left-hand side?
Yeah.
Would they have water available to them? I mean,
Yeah.
No.
No.
No, no.
No water.
What do you think we're running here? No food, no water.
No toys.
dogs, the town's going to the dogs.
They need to be able to read by the time they leave, because there's no activity.
Yeah, they'll have water.
Well, they have dog treats.
I mean, a lot of dogs have allergies, so.
All right. So, so there will be no peanut dog treats on the site? I just want to make sure we're clear. I'm asking all the questions that, people are afraid to ask. But...
You got them all.
All right, try.
Can't watch one dog, what's 4 or 5 going to be like?
I think you have a member of the public that wants to speak.
Oh,
Oh, boy.
Carolyn McPherson, 14 Winterberg Road. I believe we've met before. My only concern, because while I'm not on the abutter list, like I can look out my front door and see this building. So I know you said like nobody's there, but when it was a gym, I frequently woke up in the morning if my window was open, to the sounds of, I don't know, they did like big tires.
Tires outside, that's right.
And grunting, and like, I mean, I could hear it all. It carries very well across Richardson's property, right? So, so that's the reason why I recuse myself. But my only concern is actually having done a doggy daycare in a previous life, is that dogs generate a lot of waste. And dog waste, cooking in the summer heat, in the summer sun, can generate quite a smell. And I assume that's part of the health.
I spoke to Derek
Okay, so
this
the,
afternoon.
yeah,
and They need to provide him as part of the kennel license with a plan dealing with the dog waste.
yeah, like how, like there's a frequency sort of thing, like.
House bag,
Okay.
he had mentioned double bagging and some other things. So
Okay.
that's all part of the Board of Health kennel.
Okay, that was my,
so it's contingent on that.
Yeah.
We can make it contingent.
yeah, that was
We're
my
giving
only.
zoning approval. She still has a whole other step with the Board of Health.
Oh.
Once you're giving zoning approval.
Diaper gene.
Yeah.
There's a couple others in town that, he has pretty much a standard set of regs for that they have to follow.
Makes sense.
We can just add that in there.
Yeah.
For
yeah,
approval of the
approval of the Board of Health.
Board of Health.
But no water,
No water.
no water.
Put that in your.
Did you have
No-
anything
no
else
peanut
you wanted to add, ma'am?
Well, what I was gonna say about the dog waste,
Sure.
so we would have like metal scoopers in the room to pick everything up. And then the trash would be taken out every night at the end of the night. And then we have a dumpster that's already behind the building. So we would just have that emptied. I mean, I'd have to see how everything starts
That's all
going,
gonna
but.
be, it's all gonna be with the Board of
Yeah,
Health.
the Board of Health
Yeah,
has
the Board of Health
requirements
may
and
tell
how
you
it's.
something different.
Yeah,
That's fine.
They gotta satisfy the Board of Health,
Out of
That-
there.
that's not in front of us.
by their license requirement, a permit requirement.
Thank you.
That's why I asked about the washing, they need a tight
That's a whole
tank
other,
There was no
for that one.
it's a whole other
No
thing.
comments.
Yeah, she don't,
Come on, I did the other one.
You did a good job.
Yeah, so you, go ahead, special permit, easy peasy.
Greg,
You have no
Greg?
correspondence, right?
Oh, no correspondence, I'm sorry.
I'm working on it.
That's why they
Any other questions by the board members?
you did-
Is there a motion?
He's working on it.
He's working on it.
Let's see. The original application. Copy of it.
Yeah.
Thanks. I just want to use the computer. That's the abutter list.
Craig, on page 5 of the staff report, there's the general special permit criteria.
Yep, no, I got that. I just wanted the original special, the actual application, like a hard copy of it.
Sorry.
I'm not fumbling around because I just closed my Dropbox.
We have it over here, but the
Oh,
only
the
one
rest
we
of
have
them,
is
so
on
what?
your
I guess.
Next to the restaurants.
Huh?
It's on the attachment.
Copy of that.
Okay, so
That's all I can do.
the application.
The sort of thing you should examine maybe 6 months later. and see
Cool,
if-
like multi-screening.
Look at you.
I know, so
people-
High tech.
All right, let me see. No good.
I think it should be next to your restaurant.
No more restaurants. I'm tired. I wanna go to the beach.
No, it's fine. All right, so, in regards to, let's see, application number 1075, which is a special permit for an indoor doggy daycare facility and a accessory retail use as well. I make a motion that the board accept the following findings. Specifically, that the adverse effects of the proposed use will not outweigh its beneficial impacts to the town or the neighborhood in view of the particular characteristics of this site and of the proposal in relation to that site. In addition, I would propose that the board find that this satisfies a community need by providing a service to the residents of Middleton and the adjoining towns, that the proposed use will not have any negative impact on traffic or pedestrian flow and safety, including any issues with parking and loading. The proposed use will not derogate from the adequacy of the utilities and other public services on the site. It is in concert with the character of the neighborhood. It will have minimal impacts on the natural environment due to the increased regulation required by the department, the health department here in town for this particular use, and that this use will provide a economic and fiscal impact to the town while increasing the tax base and not creating an undue burden on town services.
I'll second that.
Motion's made and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Based on those findings, I make motion to approve the special permit for the doggy daycare facility, specifically indoor doggy daycare only. Let me back that up. I'll make a motion that, based on those findings, we approve the special permit for a doggy daycare facility with the following conditions. That the use will only be permitted indoors, that any accessory retail use will be limited to products marketed and sold to canines only.
Floor.
And that the build-out of the space complies with all rules and regulations of the Board of Health, including but not limited to the waste disposal and also the installation of appropriate flooring to protect the unit and adjoining unit owners and occupants.
I'll second that.
Motion's made and second. All those in favor vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Congratulations,
There you go.
you're all done.
Phase one, done.
Good luck.
Okay, it is.
Okay,
We all done now?
any other business? There being no further business, we'll accept the motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Meeting is adjourned.